Hello and welcome to episode 75 of the Movies in a Podshell podcast, the podcast where we take a theme and pick two films to fit that theme. This week's theme is love triangles. As always, I'm Jamie, and I've had two ciders in the garden while I've been reading, so I'm feeling quite loose. As always, I'm joined by the best videographer in the West Midlands, he calls himself, but you can call, I'm probably downselling it actually, probably the best videographer in the UK. You can call him John. Say hello, John.
You're being really nice. What's going on?
I get affectionate.
Johnny.
I'm not even tipsy. Anyway, we've got a little giggle in the background, and it's a recurring guest we have. Top marks if you guessed what the giggle or who the giggle was. But would you like to introduce yourself, third guest?
Hello. Yeah. My name is Clare, and I'm a. Do I say what I do? Or
yeah, you can do all that. Yeah, you've
Okay.
been on 3 times, but you can do all that.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to the pod when I've been on before, I'm a film writer and critic for Missenscene, which is my website, and a film programmer for Film Bath Festival, and also new this year. A film producer is something I can add to my list.
Oh wow!
So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me again. I kind of invited myself on, but
No,
thank
to be
you
honest,
for joining. That's
thank
good.
you for it means a lot to us because you're donating your time. You know, it takes a lot to do a podcast, as we know, because we do it all the time. So when people do say, "Oh, I don't mind coming on," well, I'm like, yeah, that's lovely, and especially we're very particular about the guests we have on, just so you know.
okay.
So that's a good thing, right?
And we've also had an in-person meet-up, haven't we, since the last one?
Oh God, we did. Yeah, we did, and you're not weird, which is really relieving. I'm joking.
You are?
I'm joking. I'm just completely joking. Yeah, no. So I think you mentioned that you were in. Where did I meet you in the end?
We met in Warwick.
That was it. Yeah, and I've never been there before, and I live just around the corner from it. So, yeah, what were you doing? What were you doing over there again?
A work conference. I was presenting and attending.
Yeah. So we met up in real life, and it was it was good. It was fun.
To be fair, you said I was donating my time. You did buy me a bowl of chips and a lemonade. So, but
I mean, there you go.
Look at me. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's
What a guy.
payment. If anyone wants to come on the podcast, we do pay in chips and lemonade only. Right, just at the top of the show, we do. John's been all quiet, hasn't he? I have to talk about the. We're still selling T-shirts, so here's our lovely T-shirts.
There it is.
Very high quality. So, for example, you could go to a Taylor Swift or a Harry Styles concert and pay £40 for a Fruit of the Loom T-shirt, but here you are getting pre-shrunk cotton, almost at cost price. Very high quality. You can go on MoviesinaPODshell.sumupstore.com for those. You can find us on Spotify. Just type in Movies in a Podshell, all one word. Find us on YouTube, Movies in a Podshell, all one word, Tony. And you can still find us on Apple Podcasts as well.
For some reason, it always makes me laugh when you say really high quality, and I don't know why.
Well, I'm not
It's
lying.
just-
I'm not lying. I'm not.
it's hard
We went for
selling.
like the highest
Does it
quality
wash
T-shirts
well?
we could.
It does wash well, to be fair, because mine's been through the wash a lot, and it's good. I mean, I should
And
be
it's
wearing
still
it.
Wearing
Wow.
your own merch, are you, John? You sicko.
Is that not a thing? Oh dear. Yeah, I do wear it. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's just good marketing, isn't it? You're all about everywhere with rubbing shoulders with people in the video world, aren't you? So hopefully you can make it big for us.
Yeah.
That's it.
Anyway,
Cool.
as always, we'll start off with what we've been watching. So it's always nice when we ask our guests to go first. So Claire, talk us through what you've been watching. Anything fun?
Okay, so I've split this by what I've streamed and what I've seen at the cinema. I've got an audio limitless, so I try and see as much as I can. But anyway, streamed first. I recently watched, just this last weekend, The Triangle of Sadness. Not to do with love triangles, although I guess there is a minor one. But satire, an Eat the Rich type thing. I don't know if either of you have seen it.
I have, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it the boat one?
yeah, the boat one, the sticky
Shut
one,
up.
and the island
Yeah,
one.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the grossest films I've ever seen, visually. Then I watched, on John's recommendation, actually, Malcolm and Marie, and
Right. What did you
Yeah.
think?
I really, really, really enjoyed it. I thought I really like films like that. I know they're not for everyone, so it's obviously really dialogue heavy. Like, it could have been like a 2-person stage show, and it still would
Absolutely.
have been just as good. I think it was like just an amazing showcase of the two leads' pure talent.
Yep.
I am already a big fan of Zendaya, but I mean, it just shows like her range, I think, films like that, and
Yeah.
she's so commanding on screen, especially like in opposition to someone who's got such a like intense masculine energy. Like she can match it, and yeah, and she's doing like acting within acting in it as well.
I said to Jamie, like, my favourite thing in that film is, and it's annoying because, you know, like on our film communities, like you'll see certain clips from certain films that always get cut out, and that's the clip that's always out of context, and it's Zendaya's character is an actress, but here's a scene where she's acting out a scene, and it's just like your brain's like Inception, just like a scene within a scene. But she's so brilliant in it, and I was a bit gutted because when she did the press tour for Challengers, she kept saying like, "Oh, this is the first time I've really played like an adult woman rather than a teenager." I was like, "No, like you're forgetting about Malcolm and Marie, but I think you're doing that because it wasn't particularly well received. So I think it's kind of been buried a bit, and it's a shame really because one, you can't get a physical copy of it anywhere. I think that's also to do with Netflix and all that kind of thing. But two, Jamie and I talked about the other week, it was a film that was the first film that went back into production during COVID in Hollywood. So I think it's quite like an interesting historical element to that anyway. I also am obsessed with the cinematography of it because the first 10 minutes is just that one shot going back and forth as they're kind of walking through the house. But yeah, I'm really glad you watched it. So thank you for watching that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Cool.
I was on like I guess just a Zendaya high, and I was like, didn't want to stop.
It's funny you say that that Zendaya, like her range and stuff, because obviously I don't know if you guys do the same as me. You might do it. I try and do it as little as possible, but when you see something, you look at the comments, and then you see the comments, and you're just like, oh my god! And so you look at more comments of annoying comments and like trying to annoy yourself like about what you're reading. And I was seeing so many people saying, "Oh yeah, like she's not that good. Like she's not got any range. Like she always plays the same."
She's like, mid is what I've read a lot recently. You
definitely haven't seen Euphoria at all. Like, so if you haven't seen, like,
Emmy winning,
and then obviously I've not seen Malcolm and Marie, so I can't comment. But
how
even June as well. Like
there?
I think she's fantastic in June. So it's just weird. What did you say, Claire?
Sorry.
How many minutes in is it until Euphoria's mentioned?
Oh yeah, it's usually John actually. Claire, carry on. Sorry.
So watch that. Really enjoyed it. Just the last thing on that film is obviously you log things on Letterboxd these days, and I looked at Letterboxd, have a scroll through the reviews like you said, and they were so highly negative because of the screenplay, and I think like people were taking it like way too seriously. Anyway, I didn't agree with them. I thought it was really, really harsh. Anyway, after that is Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which is something that's been on my watch list for ages. Awesome, about drag queens traveling across the desert. It's a kind of what it sounds like, but amazing. A bit of a product of its time. There's a question I think we're going to come to, so I won't delve too much into that. And then I think in your last pod, John, you started by saying that you had been watching Rah Rah Lion, and Jamie was like, "Oh, what's that?" Children's show. So my current children's thing is The Bad Guys, which is actually really, really good. It's it's the animated heist movie with like a wolf, a shark, a tarantula. I can't remember what else is in it. Anyway, it's brilliant. It's like Ocean's 8 with animals. But, like it as an animated film, I genuinely think it's really, really good. So that's been on repeat in our house. And then cinema, I've seen Challengers twice. We're going to discuss that, so I won't talk anymore about that. I saw The Fall Guy on Friday, I think it was, and I really, really loved that. It felt like just a love letter to action movies and stunt films.
Oh, good.
I'd quite like to see that, yeah.
And Monkey Man, which was a fair while ago now, but I absolutely loved it.
I saw that too. Yeah.
So they're my recent watches.
Cool.
Nice. Just to say, on last time we did the pod, I remember you saying that I think you'd been watching Wish at the time. So at Christmas, like my daughter had one of those sound books, and you know when it's like you have to press the button like every 3 words. Absolutely obsessed with it, and I forever here in my house, we have to get the wishes back, and it's just literally on a loop. It's like the button that gets replayed.
I know the exact book.
Okay.
God, my life is so empty. My life is so empty. No children, just a cat that woke me up at 5 a.m. this morning.
I did enjoy that. Jamie genuinely thought Rah Rah the Lion was like this really hardcore drama that he just hadn't heard of yet.
Well, I did, yeah. Well, yeah. I've heard is it The Bad Guys you mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I heard at the beginning of that, is literally not shot for shot, but it's basically a Tarantino film.
Yeah, it's the snake and the wolf sat at a diner.
Okay.
And it's just them, it's like them sat across a diner table, and then they walk out and go and rob a bank.
Right.
And all the humans scurry.
So it sounds pretty good, to be fair.
It's really good. I'd give it a go.
Yeah.
Claire, I think you just knocked your mic a bit. It's just got a bit quieter.
There we
go.
Back to Brittany.
I'm worried when I laugh it goes all fuzzy. So.
Oh, don't worry, it's fine.
Okay.
John, would you like to talk about what you've been watching?
I'm still on my Hitchcock binge. I'm
still
currently reading. Yeah, I've been reading behind the scenes of Psycho book, which I hadn't read before, which is cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realise there was beef between Hitchcock and Saul Bass on like who actually shot the shower sequence, and it's much debated. That was fun.
We had some positive comments about your chat about Hitchcock. We've been asked to do a Hitchcock episode. I said maybe episode 100. You know, it could be. I could start watching now. We could do a full blown Hitchcock retrospective.
There's still, because there's so many to go out. There's like 49 films out there that are available of his. Like I've still got so many to go at, and that's what I enjoy. However, yes, because of this I've watched Psycho again due to it. Really interesting. Like he wanted to make. He was at the time, everyone was like, "Oh, you can only make films with massive budgets." So he basically did the two fingers and made Psycho on the cheap with his TV crew, essentially. I find that really cool. But also at the time, it was around the time Francis Truffaut was kind of bigging him up and letting him know he is recognised and not just
love
not
Francis
being respected in
Truffaut.
the industry. And he's making these different things, and it's really cool. But just reading all the old techniques of how they do things, really interesting, and that's been good. And then I watched Vertigo, which I can't remember if I mentioned the last pod or not, so apologies if I did. But
tell us about it again. Tell us about the bit rates. I'm excited to hear this. Tell me.
So really nerdy streaming chat. So for all you people who love physical media, I kept saying to Jamie, I was like, the streams are so much better on Apple, but I didn't have any numbers to prove it was the case. But I found a website which has all the numbers. But what was like interesting is if you have a 4K stream on Apple TV, which is like the best you can get of like these films, the bitrate is still only just the same as like the last generation's Blu-ray, like not the 4K ones,
right?
Because I guess it's because of the internet and like what it can get across anyway. But the mad thing I found out was, say if you've got a platform like Now TV and the main program is House of the Dragon, they use increased bit rates on their most popular shows and they reduce it for shows that aren't as popular, because
what does that mean?
So basically, the higher the bitrate, the better the quality is, better your audio will be, better the picture will be. So you can say you've got 1080p on a stream, but like how many megabits per second you're getting of that data will largely depend on how good that image is or how good the sound is. And that's why, without sounding pretentious, when you put a disc in, you always get that better level of sound and visual, because it's constant and it's there on physical media. But yeah, Apple's got, if you want to stream things, Apple's the one to go for. I'm sorry to shill for
And
Apple.
we're not sponsored by them.
We
We actually hate them.
Absolutely not. So there we go. Anyway, Jamie, what have you been watching?
So did I mention? I think I mentioned I finished Chernobyl, like 3 years late, which was
the like mini series.
Yeah. I don't think you mentioned you finished it actually, but
I found completely like devastating, to be quite honest. Like, I could only
it's like life changing. Isn't it?
I could only stomach one episode a night, if I'm being honest. I watched that, and the foreshadowing of Skellen, is it Skellen?
Skarsgård, but the lead,
the older Skarsgård, and the foreshadowing of him all coming together at the end. And he said it was like, by the way, tiny little spoilers for Chernobyl, so we all obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you obviously know what happened, but if you want to just skip ahead 30 seconds, I'm just going to mention one little bit. There's some like foreshadowing where he said that he didn't believe anything that was going on because he was an insignificant person going in there, kind of working with the scientists and stuff. And I just found it like incredible how he slowly realized like the gravity of it all, and realized that it was all really serious, but he'd been sent in actually not insignificant, but as a scapegoat because it was so serious. And it's really just the way they depict the effects on people physically and stuff is just insane, and the way that the Russian government are covering it up and the KGB and that. I just think it's such expert storytelling, and this when I always say, like, me and Claire was joking with me probably a few weeks ago, like now, about how like I say that like I love Now TV, like I'm a little Now TV shill, but I do think they have like the highest quality TV shows. And I've
It's
just
got HBO,
started
isn't it?
HBO, yeah. I've just started watching Big Little Lies.
Love that show.
Oh,
So
I've not
I'm
watched
like
that one.
only 3 episodes in. Brilliant so far, like fantastic. So that's like
Is that the Nicole Kidman one?
yeah, Nicole
Yeah.
Kidman and oh, what's her name?
There's
There's another famous actress. Is she down
brilliant.
below?
There's
No.
loads of famous people.
Laura Dern's in it.
Laura Dern's in it. Yeah,
Laura
it's
Dern.
also got
Skarsgård.
the girl from Clueless. What? Reese Witherspoon.
Oh,
Bloody
Reese
hell.
Witherspoon, yeah.
Yeah, so she's in it as well, and it's just great. Like it's like drama. John, you would love it because it's like a bit OC-ish in terms of like all the drama going on, but then there's this murder that you don't know about, and I've not even got to the murder yet. I don't even know
Oh my
who's
god,
dead.
you're gonna absolutely love like the end of the season. There's another show like that that's got a really similar name. I think it's called Big Little Fires. Again, Reese
Okay.
Witherspoon in, which is
Wasn't that a book first and it was on Amazon or something? Is it
they're
that
both
one?
books.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why
yeah.
it's confusing.
Was that
Reese Witherspoon-
Witherspoon
that's
Reese
produced it as
Witherspoon.
well?
Yeah, I said this a few episodes ago. I think Reese Witherspoon is really
She's a
under-talked about
powerhouse.
and massively underrated. I think how funny she is as well on screen, and just great as an actor. So I've been watching that at the moment. I'm thoroughly enjoying that. What else have I been watching on my list? So yeah, I watched Monkey Man. That was a
I
great
told
time.
Jamie off for this because he texted me to say, I'm going to see Challengers tonight for the pod. I was like, great, cool. And then he texts me and says, I'm seeing Monkey Man. So I was like, we are recording next week. You have to have seen Challengers. He's like, no, it's the last day Monkey Man's out at the cinema. So
Okay.
Stop worrying,
Excused.
John. Like, yeah, he went out.
Panicking.
Yeah, he did. It's a pretty great time. I found it a little bit unsubtle in how it's trying to get things across to the viewer, but in terms of the fact that it's directorial debut by Dev Patel it's amazing, really.
cool.
Have you read
I love-
about his production?
I've
heard the stories about
I've heard
how
a
it
few
takes
bits how he's
so
injured
long
himself.
to get through. Yeah.
I think one of the major investors dropped out like a week before principal photography. So like a lot of the extras were part of the crew. So
Wow.
they just, whatever people they had, they were just like, you need to go over there now. Or I'm guessing he said, please can you go over there now and fill in. And I heard in like one of his interviews, like they would do one of the stunts where like someone like was thrown onto a table or something, it smashed, and then they didn't have the budget to buy multiple props, so they stick together the table with glue or tape or whatever, and then do it again. Yes, it was
Crazy.
for what it looks like. It sounds like it was very DIY, but I think the end product is amazing.
It is, yeah. I know that he wanted someone else to direct it, and someone else to write it. Sorry, and the person was his friend, and said no. Like started writing it with him, and then said like, no, look, this is your story. You need to do it yourself. And he did. And it had like proper Paul Greengrass vibes, like Born Identity kind of vibes in the way it was like, but not in the way that we know that they cut away constantly from Matt Damon because he's not really doing the action very well. The same as they do in Taken. Like it's really good. You can see the action happening. I rewatched The Other Guys, which if anyone doesn't know, that is it's just a comedy directed by Adam McKay, Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg.
I've seen that when they're the two policemen.
Yeah. Yeah, so The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson are like the hottest cops in town, but then
That's it.
Yeah, and then you've got The Other Guys. It's a pretty funny comedy. I quite enjoyed it. I then moved on to Cop Shop, which was a bit of a mistake. Cop Shop with Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler's not really in the film. It's like I think it's like a copy of like Assault on Precinct 13, but not as good. So I would just suggest you go and watch Assault on Precinct 13, the original. It's basically about a con artist who is on the run from an assassin, and he basically has this scheme where he hides out in this small police station. Hitman turns up to get him, and yeah, it just all goes pear-shaped. It's not very good. I'll be honest. I didn't enjoy it that much, but I think I'm kind of in the minority. I think I give it like a 5 out of 10, and a lot of other people are giving it at least 6. I then finally cracked open again my Wong Kar-wai box set, and I watched As Tears Go By, which is his first film. This is just about 2 stories that like kind of run parallel, and it's about this man he's a gangster, but he's in this like love affair with his cousin. which is a little bit strange. Second cousin, they do mention that. And his brother is like in the triads as well, and it's kind of just like you've got that Wong Kar-wai style of like really stylistic kind of camera and colours and the needle drops that you just, if you know Wong Kar-wai, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it was fantastic. I'm surprised it's not talked about enough, because it's usually Chungking Express that gets a lot of kind of publicity. But I would highly recommend that. And then finally, I watched Little Murders, which is a 1971 film directed by Alan Arkin, and it's a bit of a weird one, really. It's like quite a quiet film. Elliot Gould is in it, so it's one of his earlier films. It's about it's quite nihilistic. It's about New York coping with lots of violence, and the police can't control it, and his girlfriend's getting these weird breathing phone calls, and he doesn't know how to display his love to her. It's kind of like I would say a slice of life film, but like with a really nihilistic undertones, and people are getting beaten up all the time, that kind of thing. It's a bit of a weird one you probably wouldn't have heard of, because I think it's not very well known, but that was from Indicator Blu-ray, so that's the reason why I watched that, because I bought it. And that was it. And then I watched obviously Casablanca twice today, but I'll tell you about that later. And I watched Challengers 2 nights ago at the Mockingbird, and they've got new seats in screen too, so I'm buzzing. So
I saw a picture of their screen. It looked amazing.
Yeah, so they're an independent cinema, and they built a second screen with like public funding and stuff, and I think sponsors. So the second screen, obviously they did it on a budget, but the seats were kind of very, and I'm sure they won't mind me saying, because hence why they've changed them. They were very like straight out of IKEA kind of like sofas and stuff, so they were very uncomfortable, and I'm a pretty fidgety person anyway. You'll see if anyone watches me on the pod, you'll see me like constantly fidgeting, because I can't really sit still.
Do you know, I've noticed when we watch films together now, like when you come around to watch a film, you don't sit in one position. Like you start and you get about 10-15 minutes and you lean forward for a bit, and I get stressed out. I'm like, are you okay? Like,
I'm really fidgety on the sofa.
Oh,
I have to actually
really?
sit.
Good.
Yeah,
I don't know how
I
just sit. I'm in that position. I don't move for like 2 hours.
That's weird.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I
As
just
I'm sat here now,
get
but-
a sore bottom of my back starts getting. I feel like I just don't sit very well anyway, so that's probably it. But yeah, I have to fidget to get comfy a lot.
Existing hurts, like something's always in my body. Something's always just not quite right. Just not quite
I've
right.
never heard anyone say that before.
What
No,
about something
I've
in their
not.
body's not quite right?
No, existing hurts.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Well,
To be fair,
it does, doesn't it? Let's be honest with ourselves. I'm joking. What, John?
Jeez. I was going to say, to be fair, I think 3 people might agree with you when they've been playing lots of tennis, mate.
Yeah.
I think they might. What a segue, John. Would you like to introduce it on that segue?
Oh, wait. I have to tell you something.
Oh, go on, tell me.
Are you still doing your binge of like disaster movies? Did you finish that?
I mean, there's a disaster with my other half. She loves disaster movies like that. It's like probably her favorite genre. So disaster movies are always on the cards. I'm the one that's like playing it down and being like, oh, my favorite disaster movie is The Day After Tomorrow, and that's the only one she doesn't like.
Have you seen Greenland or Greenland? Because you reminded me when you said Joe Butler.
No, I haven't. But tell me about it.
It's really like predictable, and
right,
you know exactly where it's going. But it is a disaster film, and it's marketed as that, so everybody knows that. But I thought it was surprisingly entertaining, and I think it was just a Netflix release. The other thing I wanted to say as well, before we move on to challenges, is TV. I've been watching Race Across the World. I don't know, have you guys heard of that?
I watch it. Yeah.
So I don't think that any of your like international listeners would be able to get it because it's on BBC. But essentially, it's pairs of people that have to get from one point to another. So where do they start? Somewhere in Japan, and they have to get to...
They're going across Southeast Asia, basically. They're pretty much doing the route I did travelling years ago, like Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam. It's really cool to see it.
So the first one they did was London to Singapore, as an example. So they had to get from London to Singapore without flying, and like they can't... So yeah, they can't fly, and then they've got a budget, and they have to use that budget to get from A to B, but there are checkpoints in between.
Right.
Like hitchhiking, using public transport, or whatever.
No phones.
Oh yeah, and no phones. They've just got a GPS tracker which tells them when they're close to their checkpoint.
Brilliant.
But it's so good, and it's just normal
is
people
good.
trying to get from one place to another, and it's about like the dynamic between like the mother and daughter or the brother and sister.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
get to see some really far-flung places that you don't normally get to see in travel shows. So if you're in the UK or you can access BBC, try out
Worth
Race
a
Across the
watch.
World.
Make sure you've paid your TV license as well if you're watching
Yes.
that, okay? Don't endorse that. Do you remember that really weird campaign of the BBC trying to get people to pay their TV license when there would be someone outside their window?
through the
watching-
With a van.
curtains.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, yeah,
Yeah, creepy.
it's a bit creepy. Were they watching TV? You know. Anyway, John, seeing as you had such a beautiful segue into what's wrong with you?
Oh no, I've
Such a-
lost it. That's long gone.
We're gonna do challenges
Sorry,
from
John.
Luca Guadagnino from 2024.
This Friday, one of the sexiest movies ever made arrives.
Want me to come tuck you in?
Critics are calling challengers fierce, electrifying, and deliriously enjoyable.
So, how often does this happen? Going after the same girl?
This is Zendaya like you've never seen her before.
I love the pronunciation you went for then. That was good.
I think you would find. I think Luca would be pleased with it. One thing we are going to warn everyone of right now is that this is a spoiler cast. We cannot possibly talk about this film without spoiling it because there's lots of time jumps and the plot is as I've seen it described, paper thin. But it's not really about that, is it? It's about the characters and the characterization and the relationships. That's what it's about. So I don't know whether Claire,
we
you've seen this
introduce-
twice.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk? Would you like to do the synopsis, or would you like me to do the synopsis?
Or I haven't written anything down. I'm not very good on the fly, but I can have a go at it.
Well, I have one written down, but I just didn't know whether you'd fancied it.
All right. Well, you do Casablanca.
Go
Is
for
that
it.
right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Challengers is a film about three people who are all avid tennis players and tennis fans. And the story begins later on in life during a match. And the film essentially is taking us through the dynamic between the players on the court and one other person who is watching that match take place. And the way that it unravels through flashbacks is that we understand that their relationship on the court is hugely affected by the relationships that all three of them have had up until that point. And I think it's a period of like 15 years, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 12 or
since-
15.
Since they were teenagers.
Fantastic.
And, like, through college. So, yeah, it's all about the relationship of tennis and their triangular relationship.
Yeah. So the key point of that is like, essentially, for me, it's like a power dynamic film. It's kind of like, you know, who's in control or who's winning. And the truth is, I feel like no one wins at any point. It's kind of my takeaway from it. I mean, we'll get into the debate about that, but early on in the film, when we see the flashback of them as teenagers, Jamie, you've got the leads' names up before I forget them. So you've got Art and
Yep,
what's the
Patrick.
other guy's name?
So you've got Patrick played by Josh O'Connor. You've got Art played by
Patrick
Mike
Weiss.
Feist, and Tashi played by Zendaya.
The
And
Dunkanator.
The Duncan
Yeah, and especially when you meet Zendaya, she's like already like they know she's a rising star, and people ask why she's going to play college tennis because they think she could already go pro, but she's kind of building up to be the next best thing, and like Adidas are already sponsoring her despite the fact she's not on the pro circuit. And when they meet her for the first time, they're just completely, it's like, well, they're just teenagers and they see someone who is incredibly attractive but also incredible at the sport that they're into. So it's kind of a double whammy of, oh my God, have you heard about Tash? Like, here she is, da-da-da-da. And it's really interesting, Art's relationship from the off, because they're best friends, but like it's that kind of, I listened to an interview with the actor who plays Art, and he said it's like that weird dynamic where they're your best friend but you also hate them a lot of the time because they're cooler than you are, like they're more... like they're better with women, they're more relaxed. So he spends.
It's like you and me, John.
Half his, yeah, clearly. So Art spends half his time trying to like emulate how he is to maybe like be more like him, to be more successful. But at the same time, he kind of resents the fact he has to do that. And like you're just watching this play out. But the key thing for me is they have when they talk to Zendaya's character for the first time, Tashi, she talks about like tennis isn't just a sport, it's a relationship. And like he says, when I watched you play, there was a shot you hit and I'd never heard you scream like that before, right? And she says, well, it's not just about the game, about sport, it's about like tennis is a relationship. And like you find out through the film, like tennis is everything to Tashi. Like no matter what she's doing, that's the conversation, that's the theme. The whole life revolves around that. And that's really important because later in the film, or right at the finale of the film, it links back to that quote of like seeing that relationship on the court and how the best tennis only comes from the relationships. And little do we know it's from someone watching on the sides and these two guys going at it. But yeah. That's my intro.
I think in many ways, like tennis is how they express how they feel, and I suppose you do that with an opponent anyway because it's psychological, isn't it? Like, I'm gonna look at them that way so that they go that way and I'm gonna go the other way. But like the way that I would think about it is if like, I guess like if a musician is trying to create a feeling of sadness, they would use like a minor chord, or like if they were trying to do something happy, they'd use a major chord. Like I feel like the way that they hit the ball and like the positioning that they use, like everything is expressing something different about how they feel. And I think in that final scene, which I guess we'll get to if we're going to go through it chronologically, but like
we'll try.
There is so much. There is so much, because I suppose it is the start and the end actually, isn't it? But then it goes back to like a really like climactic scene. But yeah, I just think they are so expressive in the way that they hit the ball and the way that they like either attack or defend or move. I said or I've written in my notes, because I've seen it twice, and for the first time I knew it was about tennis, I knew it was about three people and there was romance lust involved, but I didn't know exactly what it was. So when I went the second time, I was looking at it from more of a technical point of view. So I was like paying attention to framing and stuff like that. So the very first shot is a close-up, and it's of their faces, and it's of the sweat on their faces, their eyes, their focus. And then it sort of, I can't remember if it cuts or pans, but it goes to like a crosshatch of the court, which I thought was really interesting, because I guess that may be foreshadowing. Well, the division, I think, is the actual net, because there's a I don't know if it's a tracking shot or a dolly shot or whatever. You might know, John, better than me, but that goes down the line to Zendaya, who is like the division between them. But before that, it's actually like the crosshatch of the court, I guess, where the lines meet. And I guess this is because it's like a real pivotal point in relationships and in careers and things like that. So knowing what happens in the rest of the film, I could pay attention to see
those visual motifs rather than the
So I was just so impressed the second time going back to see it. And it zoomed from one end of the court down the line to Tashi. And then I think at the very beginning of the film, it's like establishing binary opposition. So you like just looking at their costumes. So Art is sponsored, and I think he's wearing all white in that match. He's very clean cut. When he sits down,
jacked.
And he's drinking out of like a, what are they called, like protein?
Like a sponsored one, not having like a banana and just a water bottle like the other guy. Yeah.
So he's just primed, and he's what would you call it? He looks the part.
He's a bit more polished, isn't he? He's a bit more polished and refined.
Yeah,
he's the pro who's had the best career, though, isn't he? Like that's the point. Like he's the one who's had the endorsements.
Oh, he's
and all that
been
stuff.
completely strategic about his whole career. Or Tashi has on his behalf, and he's done what she wants.
You could argue actually that because obviously we do know that Patrick is the better tennis player than Art. We find it out throughout the film.
He's got more natural talent.
Exactly,
but I don't know if he's the better player.
Well, Art he's had Tashi's coaching for his whole career, so it could be that's maybe another angle you could look at, that Tashi's actually the reason Art is as good as he is because of Tashi, and she's been pushing him and driving him and been a great coach because she was a great player.
Also because he had her belief. So she says to him when they meet up later, like, you could beat him. And I think he needed that like verbal approval and
To get
her
going.
seal, like to be like, okay, I can. Like
Yeah.
I think for him it's wholly dependent on her.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and John was talking about the two scenes. I've wrote a few key scenes down that I wanted to talk about. When we see Patrick and Art growing up together, and they see Tashi on the court for the first time, like she's like aggressive and she's animalistic, and the boys, the way I think this film could have been a disaster in the hands of another director, and it would have been nowhere near as well. I'll talk about it. Like the way Luca Guadagnino like shoots people and humans, and he has this way of making people look, these movie stars look like normal people, and we see the soles of their feet quite often. And anyone who plays sport knows that when you play sports like tennis or basketball or football, the soles of your feet are like ruined, like they're destroyed, like they've got calluses all over them, you've got blood blisters, and it really doesn't shy away from any of that. And he makes these film stars feel human, and the way he shows like human connection for intimacy, like I think it's really like quite raw. You can smell the scene, you know, like when they've got their shirts off and that kind of thing. And so I think that the way he has kind of framed this whole film going all the way through, that's a really big part of it, and one of the main reasons why it doesn't fall flat on its face, or it could have been a bit sleazy, but it's not. It feels really natural.
Two things on that. Sorry, the choice of even like the lenses used to make it always feel like they're super close together, even if they're not particularly positioned. Just like from the if you got a zoom lens, and the more you zoom, the more it compresses the background space behind it, so it seems closer to them. But in a lot of the sequences, it feels like there's never much space in the frame. Is there? Like it's either because all three of them are like tightened together, or it's because like the two guys are together, and it's just interesting. Like and Jamie, you talked about like the film feels really intimate, really sexy, pretty much throughout the entire thing. But actually, like there's not really any nudity in it from memory. Like there's not really like an explicit sex scene or anything. But it was kind of marketed as being like this really edgy thing where, you know,
it's
Zendaya, and
teased,
it's like,
isn't it? Several times. And it's
but
teased on the court and off the court.
Yeah, but it's a sexual tension film, and I joked to Jamie. I said it's like the tennis, the tennis version of Top Gun, because there's a lot of like underlying sexual energy in a lot of that film, from like the volleyball sequence to like whatever else, and it does kind of have that kind of energy, which is like we're joking, but like the tennis relationship on the court is expressing those feelings, and like the final tennis sequence towards the end like is essentially, everyone said it's like it reaches a climax, and like it effectively is like a sex scene itself, and it's absolutely designed that way, and the reaction it gains from Tashi in the crowd and from like both central characters, it's super interesting. But I think Jamie and I had a quick chat before the pod, and we were trying to work out why it's kind of like critically seems to be really well received, but then audiences aren't quite as on board with it. It seems to get more of a mix. I think it's because the trailer for it is very much like it's been promoted like Wimbledon, as in the film Wimbledon, where it's like there's a tennis competition, but these two guys like this girl, and it's a rom-com, off we go. And it's really not that. Like it's quite a dour film, really. And the first thing I thought of, and I've said this to Jamie, not just because of the Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross score, is it's that kind of vibe of The Social Network, where it's showing events that have happened. By the way, this isn't real, this film, but still, like it's taking events that like have happened, but showcasing them in a very unflattering way. It's just kind of no punches pulled, like this is what happened, and like lots of people were hurt along the way, and it is what it is. And it's interesting, isn't it? Like I can see why some people feel, I don't want to say robbed by it, but just kind of they were expecting something more light-hearted, and then they've got this kind of quite full-on drama, which is what I think it is, or even potentially thriller territory.
I've seen people giving this 4 out of 10. Like, I think they're out of their mind. Like, and this is going to sound like I'm being like really elitist, and I don't mean to be like a prick, but I'm going to be probably.
But
I'm about to be. But I have noticed that like the critical reception, as John said, is really high, and then I would say that the casual film goer hasn't appreciated it, or maybe wanted something different, or found it boring. Whereas it was 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I was going in expecting it to not enjoy it, because I don't really like Guadagnino's films that much. Like I'm not a huge fan of him. I didn't even finish Bones and All. So so I was going in like being like I'm probably not going to like this, and ended up like absolutely loving it. But the 2 hours and 10 minutes completely flew by, and I wanted more. Which when I seen like quite a lot of mixed reviews, I was just quite confused by that. After
I haven't
watched
actually read any reviews, so I'm not aware of that.
I
But
don't think so. I just see
feel
the scores,
within
I
our
guess.
within our little community, I feel like people are raving about it. But I guess they're
Exactly
film
that.
literate. But I don't know about general audiences. I guess it is a little bit out of the ordinary, and it's uncomfortable in places, and people don't tend to like being put in uncomfortable positions or being missold things. So again, I haven't seen the whole trailer. I've only seen the poster, which is genius.
Okay.
But I guess, yeah, if you feel like you've been missold it, especially like because it's a whole different genre. If people think it's like a
But you've got to think, like, Finch has talked about this loads, like, marketing jobs that sell films, they don't care how they represent the film as long as they get bums on seats. Like, if they completely misrepresent a film but they get X amount of people to go to the film, they're happy to do it. So, like...
The Village.
The example he always gave was for Fight Club. They said it was like a boxing movie, and, like, Fight Club isn't a boxing film. There happens to be some sequences with fighting in it, but it's not a boxing film. So people were like, it's crap, there's not enough fighting in it. And he was like, well, that's not the point of the film. But Fox were like, we don't care, we got bums on seats, and, you know, people came. So it is what it is. I do think as well, a lot of people maybe like Zendaya is such a pull at the moment, isn't she? Like, she is the star of the picture. Like, she's the attraction at the moment, and I feel like pretty much anything she's doing at the moment is turning to gold, pretty much. And I think maybe people didn't respond to her being potentially perceived as like Zendaya said, it's the first time she's played, we were saying, like an adult character, but also like, depends how you read it. I think she's gaslit, and we'll get into that. But like, some people see her as the bad guy of the picture, and she said herself, the first time I watched it, I thought I was the bad guy. Then I watched it again, I thought, no, you see it from different perspectives. I've only seen it once,
I saw the same
but I changed
interview.
it a few times. Yeah.
What, like whose side you're on, kind of thing.
Well, not.
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying
Or
to work
who's
out.
in the right.
Yeah, and essentially, kind of not really anybody. Like, everyone's in the grey. But what I would say is, well, let's get into it. Tashi's basically, her career never takes off because she gets a serious injury. And by the way, I hate depictions of, like, I'm terrible with blood, guts and violence, and just the noise of her knee going absolutely sent me in the cinema. It was vile, but anyway.
And the scream when she was led on the floor as well.
And, like, it's proper. Like, it was, And at that moment, before she goes to that game, she at this point, she's dating, I've forgotten his name again, for God's sake. Not Patrick. And she's dating Patrick, and they've had a bust up just beforehand.
Yeah, the reason why they've had a bust up is because, well, first of all, when we see them, the whole thing is that they approach her at this party after they've watched her play, because they're obsessed with her. They've got this like absolute like animalistic feeling towards her, like they're falling in lust with her, like. And it is weird because it's not done in a pervy way either. Like they literally sit there and be like, her body's effing amazing, like, and you don't feel like they're being pervs, like they're just, because they're in complete admiration of her. And I think that's one thing that Guadagnino does like so amazingly well, is that. But then, so at the party they invite her for a smoke on the beach. So this was a really, like, I sent you both a track, and this was really I found quite, like, I loved this bit. So at the party they invite her both they both invite her for a smoke on the beach, and she's like, yeah, maybe I'll come down. And so she comes down, and it's got this shot of the score completely changes, and it's got this shot of her in a blue dress on a rock with a full moon behind her, and this kind of like really melodic, like mythical kind of, it's called L'Earth, which is the egg.
It's moody though, like it's minor and
like, definitely moody, but it's quite like mystical. Yeah. And I was looking at that and I was like, oh, do you know what, that really reminds me of like a mermaid or a siren. And what the sirens would do is they would be beckoning sailors with their song, and they'd be beckoning sailors to their doom. And that kind of came from Homer's Odyssey, like, and Odysseus basically asked his sailors to tie him to the front of the boat so he could hear the song, because it was so like it made you feel pleasure. And but his sailors would put wax in their ears so they could sail past safely. And that scene there, I was like, oh god, that's really like, really reminds me of like a siren of her doing that. And then as the film goes on, that's when I was more like kind of involved in that, and I was like, God, you know, I do think that is a bit of symbolism there. And then obviously we see the scene with, which is actually like really cringe every single, the poor girl, like every single like interview she's doing, like she's getting asked about this threesome, which is just pathetic. And journalists need to just do better. But so she gets invited back to their room, and they have this little kiss and this little thing, and then the two guys have this little kiss. They need to be getting something off their chest after all this time with each other. And then she leaves, and she basically leaves on the note of whoever wins the match tomorrow out of you two gets my number. And so from there, we kind of already had the feeling that Patrick was the better tennis player, had more talent. And so John, you were alluding to the fact that it skips forward. We've got Patrick.
So when we skip forward, Patrick's won that match, and they're dating. They're at college.
I feel like we should go back before we get to that.
Go on.
Like to think about the dynamic between the two friends, because when we first see them before they meet Zendaya, like they are super super close, and they're winning matches together, aren't they?
Doubles,
Well, they like lifted a trophy, didn't they? So they're known as a
in
pair.
the doubles game, yeah.
And then like there is, I know. Sorry, I left the room because I started having a coughing fit.
No, it's all
so
right.
I don't know if you've covered it, but you know when Tashi walks onto the tennis court, and she walks on and she's got like, there's loads of slow-mos, and then she walks on, like the pulsing music starts.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think it's the pulsing music. I think it's that song called Yeah. And it's just like,
Which just
sounds really weird to anyone listening, but that's literally how the song goes. And then, it just pans to their faces and their jaws are on the floor.
Yeah.
They're like, who is this siren? I'm going to use that word because you were talking about it, Jamie.
Yeah.
But they are transfixed by her, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's not just because of her looks, it's because of how incredibly powerful she plays tennis, and like she has not just them in her hands, but like the whole place just adores her, doesn't it? Like she just seems to like bring people along with her. And then their relationship, you see like the competitive edge that I guess they put into their opponents in tennis matches, like goes
turns to each other
elsewhere, and it turns to each other as they sort of battle it out for her. So I think that's like we see like the dynamic changing when their faces change when they see her for the first
I'm glad you mentioned that.
And around that as well, like Patrick even says like beforehand, oh, you can win that game, like I'm not that fussed, like it'll help you more for like getting through. And then soon as like Tashi puts the number on the line on the win, they're like absolutely not.
And he's
Gonna
like,
destroy it.
Doesn't he say like it's something about his nan is going to die and she really wants to see him win or something, and he's like, oh. But then in the room, like there's all like the sexual tension, and there is a physical scene where they all kiss on the bed. So you think it might lead elsewhere, but it's a bit of a tease for the audience as well. But it's what she also gets him to say and express to each other. So she like manages to elicit lots of memories and like really personal, intimate details about their relationship with each other. And I think that's like important to remember, or like to pick out as well, because it's an intimate relationship from the start, like between the three of them, and she knows so much about them, and all they know about her is that she plays tennis really well.
I also like on that sequence when you think it's going somewhere else, when she lies down on the bed, she's almost like crucifix, like arms out like this, and the smug smile on her face that she's able to get these two men to do whatever she basically wants, and like the power she feels from that. But I also thought, and like this might be reading too much into it, you know, at the start, like before that sequence, like her dad's kind of managing her career, because it's like, come on, Tashi, you need to go take photos and all this. I thought, is this the first time where like she's been puppeteered to have like this perfect career and she has to do all these things? Is this the moment where she's like, it'd be really fun to do that with someone else that's not me, and me not being the puppet for a change? And then you kind of like watching that play out. Maybe not, but it's kind of
no. I think it's valid. Like I don't think that's a crazy notion. I like it.
No.
Yeah. It's funny. I mentioned that when she comes on the court, when you left, Claire, I mentioned that when she comes on the court. No, it's fine. Okay. But it was good because it was good to hear your point of view completely separate from mine, and we were both
yours?
Very bang on. No, I literally just said that
Animalistic men.
What I love is the fact that they're not seen as it. You don't feel like they're being pervy, like, but because they're so in awe of just her in general, like in her skill, and as well as that as well. Like they do talk about her body, but for some reason it doesn't feel creepy. It doesn't feel pervy. It just because they it's pure adoration, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
so yeah,
they're just huge fans of her. I mean, from like in seconds, I get the impression well, not Josh, that's his real name. What's his name?
Art.
Not Art, the dark haired.
Patrick.
Oh, Patrick.
Patrick knew about her already, didn't he? But Art didn't, because he tells him about it, and he's like, "Oh no, you haven't seen anything like this before," and he primes him a little bit. So I wonder what, like, obviously we'll never know, but I wonder sort of what research he had or what he knew about her.
Yeah.
And then he must have withheld it up until that point.
Yeah.
But it'll be word on the street thing. Like Harriet plays football, and like players just know players, right? I mean that's squad, so it's different.
She's also quite an up and coming star in there.
And she's sponsored by Adidas already, so I'm reckoning she's got a few marketing campaigns going.
Emma
like,
Raducanu,
she's probably got.
She's kind of got that thing going on.
Yeah.
But
the sequence we kind of got to is we were talking about when it flashes forward, like we're coming up to Tash's injury, and basically at this point her and Patrick are together, but like Art's kind of, well, he's very much friend zoned, but he's looking for any opportunity to kind of add a wrinkle in. So
got a wooden spoon out, hasn't he?
And he's like, so they go for lunch in the canteen. He's like, oh, how's it going? Are you still together?
Yeah. And
it's this kind of like dynamic of, it's quite clear he's looking to wheedle his way in.
He plants a seed, doesn't he?
He does.
Seed.
Yeah, and then basically before Tashi's game, Patrick goes round and they start to like begin to go and have sex, and then Tashi just starts like slating his tennis, just like.
He's like, can you just stop talking about tennis for a minute? And she's like, well, no, like if that's what you can ask of me, there's no point. Like, why are you even here?
Kicks him out. Yeah. And there's a great T-shirt which is prominent throughout the whole film, which is it's a T-shirt which says "I told ya," which is was also worn by the actors on the marketing campaign, which is great for the film. And yeah, basically, after this argument, Art texts Patrick, say, "You coming to the match?" because he realises he's not there, and he says, "No, I'm not. Big fight, is what it is." Anyway, Tashi then has her injury on the court, and like does her knee. It's horrible, but Patrick then obviously finds out and runs to come and aid her, and Art, and this is why I said gaslighting at that point, is like, get out. She doesn't want to see you, blah blah blah. She is there and also does agree at that point, but he uses that injury and that moment to basically wheedle in. Like that is the key moment of like, how did Art and Tashi end up together? Admittedly, it's technically later down the line, but that's the moment when he's like, right, here's your hard cut away from Patrick, because he's a dick, and like if you hadn't had the argument, would you have had this incident, and like etc etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was bad.
At her most vulnerable, Yeah,
it's
not nice from Art, because Art, you would argue actually, like on paper, you'd say Art is actually, if we were to look at them, he's like the cleanest out of the lot of them, but what he did there was pretty nasty.
To look at, he's the cleanest, but there's a scene later on where she's talking to Patrick and she's like, stop, like this is so performative, like you don't need to sleep in your car, like you don't need to wear like scrappy clothes.
Yeah.
So I think he's like performing as a poor boy that's like, I don't know, on his last legs, but actually he probably comes from a really well-to-do family.
Well, he does, because they talk about houses at the start, so when they're walking across the mansions, and like Patrick and Art both from wealthy backgrounds, Tashi's point is she isn't. She's had to work her way through to get to that point through scholarships and what have you. Like that's kind of, it's not a main point of the film, but it's alluded to at the start, which is why the rebellion of going for a smoke or going for a couple of beers with the guys is like quite a big deal, because she's had to keep on the straight and narrow, but to keep on that course to make it. But yeah, like Patrick is playing the part, because I think after that incident, because he's lost out on Tashi, and like let's be clear, on all the flash forwards from that point, Tashi and Art are a power couple. Like they're on billboards for the new Aston Martin campaign. They're marketed to buggery, and if you're Patrick, you must feel crap about seeing that, despite the fact Patrick thinks he's probably getting the moral wins, because as we discover, like he's hooking up with Tashi every so often, and that makes him feel good on the basis of like he's still beating Art, because although Art's in a relation,
Sorry, carry
Sorry,
on.
no, go on.
That Aston Martin advert that you mentioned, it is draped over a huge like apartment building, isn't it? That
Yes.
creates a backdrop for quite a few key scenes, and
Yeah.
it changes at several points. So like there's a storm in the film, and there's like a prior scene to the storm occurring, and like it like kind of seems to reflect where their relationship is at that point, because it like folds
Yeah,
over
of
at one
course.
point and hides one of them. And before it's even put up, there's a scene where she's like on the coffee table like doodling on the plans for it, and she sort of red pens it and says like, I think it says what's the surname, I can't
She
remember the
changed it so
surname.
it's about both of them rather than just about him, because the initial
Yeah, she
wording is
adds
very
an S to
him
it.
focused, and she makes it the plural to make it
Donaldson.
more about both of
Donaldson,
them.
yeah. So
Donaldsons.
Donaldson. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting how that kept, like, that was a reoccurring reminder of, you know, the dynamic of their relationship as well. So
Absolutely,
yeah.
and like, yeah, it's interesting as well. Like Zendaya in let's say the current day sequences building up to the tennis tournament, which is what you see at the start of the film, she can come off as like quite unlikable at points because she's being like really cold. But when you get the flashback to seeing how she ended up with Art, you then are like, okay, well, I would be miserable in that scenario if I think actually maybe I wanted to be with someone else, but I kind of got locked in this. She obviously has a child with Art, as we know, and it feels like she's just kind of, as harsh as it sounds, she's got trapped in a life which she probably didn't plan to be trapped into, and she doesn't really know how that's happened. And Art's miserable because he's living a career he doesn't particularly want to do anymore. Like, he wants to finish, but
just
he
wants to
knows
eat a
that.
burger.
Yeah,
That's
He wants to eat a bit and spend time with his daughter as well.
Yeah.
Like he wants to
Tashi's
spend time with his family. He's still besotted. Nothing's changed between his feelings with him and Tashi. Like he absolutely loves her still, and it's a bit of a shame. Like one thing I
when he says,
noticed throughout the
I
film.
love you, and she goes, I know.
I know.
Like, I know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ooh, that power dynamic. And yeah,
The power dynamic, though, just to go back to that poster, I've only just thought of this, but when they're stood like either side of a poster, it's in like thirds, so it's very like classic design, I guess, but the car's in the middle and they're either side, and it's like a face-off situation. So even like in the imagery of like a like pretend advert, they're like opponents almost, and it feels quite aggressive, that relationship. It doesn't look like they're, you know, partners or together.
Oh,
There's
God,
no
no.
intimacy there. They're like,
There's no affection.
yeah. So it's
None.
all
It's a
business,
business.
isn't it? Yeah.
It's
On the
like,
parent thing, sorry.
yeah.
This is my only criticism of the film, and I probably wouldn't have noticed it if I weren't a parent. There's a scene where Zendaya, I guess we'll get to that in a minute, but she leaves the hotel, and like they all say night, and it's like the night before the big match that's about to happen. So like there's lots of tension in the air anyway. And her mum's there helping out with her daughter. Zendaya goes into the bedroom and there's like twinkly lights and everything going around, and she goes in and she says, "Oh, good night, darling," or something.
And she goes out.
pulls
Yeah.
the cover over and she's like, "Night," shuts the door. I'm like, no child under the age of 5 goes to bed with someone to say night and shuts the door. It just doesn't happen. So to me that was really unrealistic. I was like, no, that's not reality.
That's what happened in my house.
No, we can assure
Well, yeah.
you, Jamie, that does not happen. It's
No.
not.
Listen, I've heard there was one time when we had to literally cancel the pod because John was like, when John had just had his baby was just born. They were getting to routines and that kind of thing, and so I obviously knew about this routine. I could tell you John's routine like back to front. Like this is how we roll, sadly. And yeah, when he's putting his daughter to bed, there was one night where you said was it the worst night you've ever put her to bed that night?
Oh God, yeah. It was really hot, and she hates the heat. And also, it was a phase when she wasn't enjoying doing
frozen
bedtime
for
routine
me.
with Dad.
Yeah, it's
anyway.
frozen for me as well.
So it was like a double whammy of bad.
Come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, you froze a little bit there, but I think that it might
had
have
double whammy of bad.
continued for us. Yeah, so I've marked the clip, so it's all good.
No worries.
Yeah, basically had his daughter screaming at him for an hour or so, and so we just cancelled the pod. I was like, don't worry, mate, you crack on with that, and we'll pivot.
Oh, I
We'll
almost
pivot.
did tonight's pod in my car, as you know, because of
Yeah.
sleep situation. So it's like, yeah, that doesn't happen in the real world. I know it's.
I thought you were
the
paying
daughter
ode
was.
to Patrick being in the car.
Oh yeah, I was like living
Excellent.
in my car performing.
Yeah.
I don't think Patrick's my number one though, you know. So I don't think I
No?
would want to, side with him.
Would you not?
No,
Who would you
I
side
think
with?
he's sleazy.
He is. I think he's a bit sleazy. I think, to be honest, I think Art is. If we can choose like who we prefer and stuff, but I do think that for me, Art is probably the purest out of the three, maybe.
No.
I think he's in
No.
it. He's in it for love, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
it's all based on a lie. Tashi, to be fair to her, like, I think she comes out morally clean. Well, I say morally clean.
She
I
has an
don't think
affair
she does,
multiple
mate. I don't
times.
think
Well,
she does.
look,
Let's talk about that
controversial,
scene
but-
we were just about to talk about, and we'll talk about
we're
who's
gonna talk
morally
about it.
clean.
No, we established that she's still hooking up with Patrick, not often, but I would argue, obviously not good for the fact she's married, but the whole thing's based on a lie. She's clearly unhappy. Like the whole thing is she's trapped in that because she knows like it kills her to know that if she separates from him, like her career is nothing at that point as well because
Okay.
she's based her career around like building.
Hope your wife
him
doesn't
to
hear
be
this pod,
thing.
mate.
Well, no,
Because
it's
what should we
fictional
do if we're
characters in the
unhappy?
film.
If we're unhappy in a
Oh,
relationship, we probably shouldn't default to having sex in the back of the car with someone.
I think I
Um,
know
No,
what you
that
mean
is true.
though. I get where you're going with it.
She
I do
was
know what you mean,
gaslighted from day dot. Basically, is my point. So
She was done dirty by like just fate as
Yes.
well, wasn't she?
Thank you, Claire.
And she says as well was it Art that had an injury?
Yes,
Did he have an
yeah.
injury as well? I can't remember
Yes,
what
he
happened.
does. He's recovered. So the reason he's doing that whole tournament is because he's on the way back from an injury. Like he's had
Yeah.
like a
And
crap
she
time. Yeah.
says something along the lines of like, "I would literally kill somebody to have a recovery as good as yours." So
Yes.
I
Resent.
like neither of them would be her first love. I think she has a gaping hole in her life that she can't get because she can't play tennis at the level that she knows she could have done. So
Yeah.
she just goes between the two people that provide her with what she
Sex.
needs at that moment.
I'm joking.
Well, no. She
Sometimes.
lives vicariously through him. So
Sometimes.
the actor who played Art said his whole thing was like, Art's almost like not a complete person. He spends the first half of the film trying to mould to be more like Patrick to win Tashi, and then when he does actually get Tashi through dodgy pretenses, he then spends the whole time being moulded into what she wants him to be anyway. So he's never really his own real person. Like he's never. The only time you see the real Art is when they do the doubles at the start, and you talked about the lifting the cup, and when they're actually happy because he's just playing tennis. But for him, like. He even says, like, he's not a natural born player. It's just a thing, like, he's pretty good at, but he's not, like, you know, he's having to work on it. It
I
doesn't
think
come
he just
naturally
needs to
him.
be loved and adored, and I
Yeah.
think when he has that, that's when he plays. Although, I think he. Okay, I'm not going to go there yet because we haven't got to it. But
Well,
yeah,
I think it's probably
That's okay.
important to talk about that. The whole reason why they're at this tournament is because Art is basically he can't win a match because his confidence is completely rock bottom. And Patrick has been just basically slumming it on the lower circuit, trying to get qualification for a big tournament, and he just can't quite get there. And the winner of this is called a Challengers tournament, where we have lots of these unseeded tennis players, and the person that wins a tournament wins A, lots of nice money, and B, they will then go into a draw to go into the real tournaments for like Wimbledon, the French Open, etc., etc.
American Open's what they're going for, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we see, and that's kind of how it comes to be that Patrick and Art end up against each other. So
Back together,
that's why we're in that situation, and so we were kind of alluding to the fact that Art and Tashi are married at this point. Tashi's definitely unhappy. Art completely loves her still.
But
and
I think Tashi does try and resist because when she first sees Patrick in the hotel lobby,
she hates him.
She's like, get out.
she's just
yeah, well, I
like,
can't
just
repeat, but
leave
there's a
my
lot.
family alone.
Yeah,
And she does try to. I think that she does try to.
But we get the
bothers her.
context. Yeah, but we get the context before that they've already had a fandango.
What, in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
That was
In Atlanta.
pre-child, wasn't it? I feel like that would change everything, and she's got like more reason to like keep the family together, I guess, which isn't a reason to like say
Maybe that,
unhappy marriage. I know, but
Interesting. I hadn't. Yeah.
Try again. I suppose that's.
I do like though with like Patrick the fact like he has to use Tinder to like get a hotel to stay in before the tournament.
Hilarious.
Like that's
It's quite fun. It's quite a funny film. Like, there's some really good bits in the film. Yeah, it's dark.
It's more Zendaya's facial expressions when she's reacting to realizing like you're sleeping with a woman just so you've got somewhere nice to stay.
She's so funny. Yeah,
she just like gives a glare, like she looks up from her laptop like, please.
I do love when she does the whole like this whole act of you being like a down on your luck, whatever. Like it's you know it's BS and like you should drop it, go back to mummy and daddy and get some money
as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, because the truth is like we know he's from like a wealthy background anyway, so he doesn't have to. He's doing it out of choice, and it's
terrible,
a question of, like,
terrible dresser.
Terrible dresser. Okay.
He needs to. Do you know what? He needs to have a shave. He
needs to sort himself out a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he's going for that rugged look.
He's gone for that hobo look.
Dirty, yeah. But yeah, it's like the cross-hatch trousers in like the sleeveless shirt. Like it's
Claire's
kind
not a fan of his fashion.
Oh,
I can tell. Like this is coming out pretty strong. I would say though, like all of these guys, and like Jamie talked a bit about it, and as did Claire. So when they're playing tennis, like the first shot I think of the film is like a 2,000 frames per second shot of sweat dripping down on a.
I didn't note the frame rate, but I saw the sweat.
So Jamie sent me an article about the frame rate. So they had to get this old Italian camera, and they were saying they literally shot like kilometers worth of like footage because like it's obviously on film stock and it's insane. But
the
like
close-ups are so essential, aren't they? Did they use that same shot? And whatever you just said about the camera, did they use those same shots when they were doing the close-ups of them? Can't do that with my hand.
I'd imagine they use a different camera for those bits.
I am not. I
wouldn't like to say.
I wouldn't have thought so, but it's. I think the thing that's so enjoyable about this is you've got really good performances in it. You've also just got a bit of a technical masterclass in terms of how it's being shot, but on top of that, the edit itself. So the first thing that drew my mind to it, and we talked about briefly, was the social network aspect of the fact of the way it jumps around in time. You've got one key event which is happening, and you get the context of why the drama is the way it is through the flashbacks. And I think it does a really good job of that. I must admit, when I watched it the first time, and initially I was like, oh, it does chop around a lot. But once we got to the film's conclusion, which we'll get into, it kind of justified why it had been done that way. So I think a key sequence we haven't mentioned is very important for finale of the film, so I'm going to talk about it. Is when Art and Patrick are still friends earlier on. Patrick's trying to explain... No, there was a sequence when they're playing tennis and they're training, and Art's like, oh, have you slept with Tasha yet? And he's like, oh, I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
But they have like a special
signal,
like a secret code, which is if the ball touches a certain part of the racket, it means yes.
Well,
so he's like, I can't tell you.
Calls him out though, doesn't he, on one of his tennis techniques? Because he's like, you have a tick. And he's like, do I? And he doesn't even recognise that every time he serves, he puts the ball in the very centre of the racket before he serves.
That's the other one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, did you mean something else?
No, that's what. Yeah, that's what he means.
Yeah, Patrick's stupid thing in my arm, which was completely wrong. But that's fine. Yeah, it's got in my back.
Yeah,
anyway,
people can't see that.
No. So yeah, like, and he doesn't tell Art. He shows Art, and Art then knows what that means. Massive significance later in the film. When that sequence happens, it's very like not a big deal. It's just like, oh yeah, whatever. The whole climax of the film, like that is the crux moment of when you realise, when Art knows for sure that Tashi has been, I'd say, I don't having an affair technically, but like I feel like it's more one-off. It doesn't seem like a constant relationship, and it's from that moment where he goes to serve, he puts the ball there, and then Art's face changes and he looks over at Tashi, and there's that moment where she's like, shit. Like, because she knows they know. Like, in that moment.
Yeah.
It's all...
I do think it's quite a cruel... We should talk about the hotel room the night before the match, because that is probably one of the most poignant parts of the film. We find...
Which bit?
So they're in the hotel room. So Art and Tashi and the daughter are in a hotel room just before... the day before the match.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a... I'd say it's probably the meanest part of the film, really. And this is where Art's kind of deciding that his heart's not in it anymore and he just wants to be a dad.
He asks he essentially asks for permission, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, basically, can after this, I'm going to try my best, but can I give up tennis? Can I
Yeah.
retire?
And she's
like,
kind of unimpressed by that, isn't she? She's like, you don't have to ask for my permission, and like it's almost kind of validated her worst feelings towards him. The fact
But
he
Patrick had already saad that's what. Oh no, he says afterwards that like that's what he's going to do, or was it before? I can't remember. I think
I
when
think
they're
before.
outside,
said beforehand that's what he's going to do.
so he calls it. So he's already like again like planted a seed and has like begun manipulating and like kind of infesting their relationship a little bit with like really nasty thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess for her that's catastrophe, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
tennis will be out of her life.
Yeah, he breaks down at that point and kind of falls asleep. He basically asks her a few questions and says, I just want you to love me, or something along those lines.
Doesn't he
And
say, will you hold me while I fall asleep or something?
That's it,
Well,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you're forgetting before that he can't perform. He tries to sleep with her and he can't. And then
Does he?
after that, yeah. And then when he can't, they're like kissing and start getting really intimate. Then nothing happens, and then he says, "Can't you just hold me and like
Oh.
and love me?"
I didn't interpret it like that.
I didn't realise that he couldn't
No?
perform, as you put it.
I don't think I didn't interpret it like that. I just thought that like it wasn't that. I didn't think it was sexual. I just thought
Yeah,
it
I
was
didn't think it was sexual either, John.
just
Sorry. That was my read at the time. Was just like
I mean,
he
maybe
was
we're
so
both wrong.
meant-
You never know.
I just think he
Yeah,
wanted to
okay.
be hugged. Like
He just-
and
he just
told
wanted a hug.
Everything's going to be okay. I'm here for you.
And
But
she's
he
like,
didn't-
no.
Well, he had
doesn't get that.
anxiety with everything that was going on with the tournament, his entire career
was
resting on
affecting
basically
his-
a win. You know, like quite a big
I
deal.
mean, but
I thought it
potentially
was-
that too.
Yeah, it was. I found it like absolutely brutal at that point that he kind of fell asleep, and she at that point goes into the other room
Sleeps
and
off.
Booty calls. Yeah.
texts Patrick, and then goes out and
Into the storm.
into the storm, and they're in the car together, and she hates him. She absolutely hates him, and yet again she like they end up
She
like
spits on him.
she spits in his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, she spits in his face, and then next thing we see, this is like a
After
kind of they're in the car together, and I would like to add L'Earth, the egg, starts
Played
playing
again.
again for the second time in the
Yeah.
film, and it's almost like the siren has again manipulated Patrick maybe and got. And when I say manipulate, I don't think she sees it as manipulation. Like I don't
No,
think she's
she
a bad person.
totally
in this.
does. She
You
asks
think she does?
him. She asks him to lose,
yes, she
Yeah,
does.
and essentially, like, I don't think it's ever said, but it feels to me like essentially she's saying, "You need to lose," and he doesn't ever guarantee her. But I feel like she thinks that if she sleeps with him,
It will guarantee.
she's got
Okay.
him.
Yeah,
Well,
links to Casablanca later. Actually, that's a plot
we
line,
hear the
but
siren again, so we hear. I feel like we hear that track again, and it's that very melodic, mythical track, and it's almost like she's got what she wanted at that point. And then the sickest part of the film probably is that she goes home. He's not in his bed, so I'm like, oh no, he knows.
yeah,
He knows
yeah,
that she's
yeah.
gone. Opens the door,
No.
and he's in bed with the daughter, like sleeping next to his daughter, like, and it's just like that's such a heartbreaking
That's
moment.
why I think it's not sexual. I think he just wanted some human connection.
Yeah.
Just
I
wanted.
take it back. It's interesting. I just at the time I was like, oh no, like that's maybe
He's failing on all
me.
fronts. Just a loser.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
He can't
And then
perform
I
on
also
the tennis court
I
or the
thought that's
bedroom.
why she wanted the booty call as well, though. I thought it was
Oh,
a
no,
needs
John-
must
John's gone
situation.
again. What's
Stop.
going on with his
Anyway,
internet?
look, what do
That's
I
because
know?
he's got
Clearly nothing.
He's got
Get-
Tesco mobile internet.
Oh.
Sorry, mate. You disappeared
Oh.
again.
Stop. We didn't hear you.
That's
what
your
you just
Tesco
said.
mobile internet, isn't it?
All I said was I thought she was in desperate need of that booty call because of that situation, and that's why she did it. Not that justifies it, but I thought
Oh wow,
that was my
I
train
think
of
you
thought.
completely, yeah.
Misread
Yeah, well,
that.
The booty call, I think she'd be kidding herself if she thought like it wasn't going to happen. But the booty call was initially her stopping tennis from leaving her life, because I think she went with the intention of saying, "I'll coach you if you let him win." Like she must have known at the
Yeah.
back of her mind, like there's a history here. Like I definitely shouldn't get in the car
It's
with
gonna
him. Like
happen.
something might
Yeah.
happen. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. What
that's
she was
a
thinking.
sickening moment there. That's like you. She's completely like gone full blown home wrecker at that point. Like,
And that's what she says several times, isn't it? Like, I was a home wrecker.
yeah, it's
those two.
quite. It's a really, and again, like I think that again with the way Guadagnino directs the actual people, and makes it feel human and makes it, I guess, like really believable. Like that's the point of all of this. Like, I don't think, apart from the fact that the daughter just goes to bed easy peasy, it is really like quite a believable. Everything's believable. Like all the interactions are believable, and you can kind of get on board with it all. And that's why it kind of has that weight to it when, yeah, she goes and cheats on her husband, and it's like he's in a bad place as it is, and she's gone and done that. It's sickening, really. And then we find ourselves back in modern day. So does anyone want to talk about
I've
that?
got like a play-by-play bullet-pointed list of the last scene.
Go for
it. Are
it.
we there yet?
I think as long as I think if we all feel like we're there, then we can talk a little bit. We've got a couple of questions to answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, I feel like you're going to talk about this last scene, maybe the camera work. Have you got any bit of camera work in there?
Yeah. And
Go on then.
Yeah.
Take it away.
So first of all, it's like a super hot day. A question first, actually, before we start that. Is it normal for tennis players to take their shirts off and sit on the court shirtless in between sets?
They I've seen it happen before. Yeah, I used to watch loads of tennis. Yeah, I used to be quite obsessed with tennis growing up, and Tiger Tim was around. No one's going to know who that is because you guys will. But
Tim Henman.
Come on, Tim.
Yeah, Tim. Yeah. You guys will know, but like a lot of younger people will be like, Tim Henman, who's that? He didn't even win Wimbledon.
Nope.
He was a proper legend, though, wasn't he?
Absolute legend, Tiger Tim. Everyone would be on the hill watching them. Yeah, So I used to watch loads of tennis. So yeah, I would say that you do see the odd bod on the side. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. So it's like a super hot day. You've got an amazing umpire, who I found out recently is Zendaya's real life assistant, and Luca Guadagnino apparently thought when he met him that he had a overwhelming sense of justice or something like that, and just wanted him to play that part. So he got a part in the film because of his vibe. But anyway, so he's there, and he's sort of obviously overseeing the match, and there is a rally going on beforehand, and like you see like these shots of the crowd with their heads moving backwards and forwards. So I've got a note here that says Art seems to think that she should be his. So you can tell like he is not just trying to win this match, but he is fighting for Zendaya, and like that would be the ultimate loss for him. I think losing her would be a bigger loss than losing the match itself.
Yeah.
So the racket hold reveal. So there's a point where they're not in a tie break yet. This is a different part of the match. So they're kind of both looking to Tashi on Zendaya, and Josh goes to take his serve. It's like the most important serve of his career. Patrick goes to take his serve. It's like the most important serve of his career, and he does the racket hold reveal. And at first, then it cuts to Art's face, and his reaction. At first, I've noted down that he seems proud of Josh, so there's like a bit of a smirk. So I don't know if that suggests he's like, you're so sly, like almost like, well, well done, like you got there kind of thing, you did it. Yeah. And then that pride for him, or like faux pride, turns to like intense bitterness. So that at that point, the music pauses. There's a time violation, because Patrick hasn't yet taken his serve, so he's just taking his time and he's like letting it sort of sink in, and then like the match takes place. And I don't think we've talked about music probably far enough as we should do, but not just the actual music itself and the score itself, but the actual cut of the soundtrack is so sharp. So like when they start hitting the ball, the beat and the drop of the soundtrack cuts like at exactly the right place. It's just like so sharp. So yeah, it's like a game of like glances and coded movements. So the thing I said before about like every sort of hit and rally, it all matters. So they force a tie break. So like they're at a complete break, so obviously it makes it really, really tense in the film because it's the final point. And then at this point is my favourite edit, So I haven't actually talked about that technical things. One of you might want to talk about that, where they have this incredible rally where the ball is tracked from each side of the court, and it's like I think the camera turns 360 or 180 as it goes, and it's just like the chaos of it all, I suppose. So yeah, and then it stops. He catches the ball to serve it, and then the beat drops as he catches the ball in his hand, and that is my favourite shot of the entire film. So the final rally, I would say, is perfect. Technically, creatively, sonically, as I said about those cuts, the narrative, like, it all comes together with this final rally of tennis, and visually it's so stunning as well. So it all comes down to this rally, and basically we're like on the edge of our seats. We're like, what's going to happen? Because I don't know if this is a callback to like whoever wins this match gets the girl kind of thing again. Are they in that mindset? Like, do we know what's going to happen after this? And it gets to the point where they're like, grunting and everything. The ball gets to a certain height. I can't remember who hits it. I think, is it Patrick hits it on Art's side or vice versa? But they basically jump up in the air for the ball, and one lands on the other, and that's the end of the film.
Yeah.
Have I told
Well,
that
no,
right?
they properly embrace. They're hugging by the end of it.
Are they
That's
hugging,
the
or do
weird-
they
It's
fall
that
on each
climax,
other?
isn't it? Where they
So here we
they
go.
jump into
So-
each other and hug.
Here we really read it. I read that as like they're kind of reunited by both being like, man, Tashi's done a number on both of us.
Oh,
like
and then
that's
Tashi
kind of worried on
shouts,
it.
"Come on!" again, which
And it links back to what we said earlier, which is tennis is a relationship, and if you want to see
Yeah.
perfect tennis, you only see it when it comes out. And she does that scream, which is the one she did when she was in her game beforehand, like in the zone.
Yeah.
Sorry for the barking dogs, by the way. Don't know
That's
why
okay. I wonder where
Is that
it's
your
come from.
neighbours?
Like,
Is that your
must
neighbours?
be.
Well,
Our neighbours don't have dogs, so it's someone walking down the road. But hey,
Loud.
well, I'll be sending a strongly worded email. It's funny, Claire, you mentioned about the how it's all perfect, because this is, and by the way, this is a quote from IndieWire. Unsurprisingly, the tennis sequences required a large amount of storyboarding and rehearsals. Guadagnino normally doesn't incorporate those into his process, but felt it was important to make sure every hit and volley had an emotional resonance that knotted the characters more tightly together. Guadagnino also wanted to make sure he didn't miss anything. I felt the precision of the script and the structure of the script needed to be very clear and carefully encompassed in the movie, so I wanted to make sure everything was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really interesting that it's the only film he's really storyboarded, which he wouldn't normally do.
I'm surprised he hasn't storyboarded before. Seems kind of professional.
Yeah.
But okay, everyone's got their technique.
maybe he likes to kind of play fast and loose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think, the scream of the "come on," she knows, I think, that they both like that side of her, first of all, but also like they finally gave her like the tennis match that she'd been waiting for basically her whole life up to that point. So that's why it's so climactic. And the way that it ends in terms of like who wins a match, like I guess it doesn't really matter.
No.
But the sensuality of it all, like the dripping sweat, and like we didn't really talk about food. I guess we're gonna run out of time, but there are many references
there's lots
to
of them, like, eating
food.
hot dogs or whatever, and it's all very sensual.
Phallic.
Or like
Churros.
yeah.
There's a bowl of peaches there.
There is a bowl of peaches really,
Excellent.
really early on. That's so a callback to Call Me by Your Name.
And I think this is his film that is most like Call Me by Your Name, in terms of the way it feels. Like I honestly know that I'm really happy that I loved this, because it is hard sometimes when you watch a few of a director's pieces and you're like, this director just probably isn't for me. Like, for example, like Wes Anderson does my head in like a little bit. I like a few of his films, but it's very, very hit or miss for me. Like, it's just that like weird, disjointed acting, like no one really wants to be there.
So
but with
did you
Luca,
ever see a Bigger Splash?
No,
Because I hated that.
Is that Wes?
No, that's Luca Guadagnino.
Oh, is it? No,
But
I
it
haven't.
was
No.
so self-indulgent. It's one of the only films I think I've ever posted on Instagram about, like, in a negative way, because I was just like, oh, I can't believe I watched all of that. But I just think he's romanticized sport, and he presents it as an art form, and it's just like, it's so psychological and physical, and it's like about strategy. Everything is so tightly and cleverly bound together.
Yeah.
And you can tell he just loves people, and he loves
Love how he
bodies.
shoots people.
And
Yeah, he does. Yeah, you really get the filth of the human body, you know, like but I don't mean
and the
in
beauty of it.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. Yeah, no, of course, but it does feel, you feel like you're spending time. You could spend time with these people, whereas when we see it much more glamorized in Hollywood normally, it's like, oh, I'm just a piece of shit compared to these people. They're all like airbrushed.
I think he sees bodies in a different way to a lot of different directors. You know, you were saying about
Absolutely
like
does.
when they were watching Zendaya, like it could have been sleazy and it could have been like lechy, but I think it's just sensual, and it's like a lust to know more about humans.
Yeah.
And like there are so many scenes that feature bodies and like the dynamics between them. Like even when, like obviously it's a profession, but there's a scene where Art is getting stretched by a physio. I guess like just as part of his PT plan or whatever.
The guy's right in his face.
He's really in his face. It's so intimate and personal, and obviously that's just this guy's job. But the way that it's filmed and framed just makes everything seem like there's chemistry. There's just chemistry of like a lot of people where they wouldn't normally be.
Yeah, no, it's good. What a film, eh? So let's can we just quickly rate what ratings are we giving it?
It's like it was an instant 5-star for me.
Right, excellent. John?
I don't like giving 5, so I'd go 4.5 probably for me.
Yeah, I think for me now I've sat and like considered it more, because I don't ever rate films like immediately. I think it's probably a solid like 9 out of 10. It's a 4.5 star for me. Like I think it's absolutely superb. I felt so happy walking out the cinema, but we have a few questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm gonna stick a couple of these questions in here. So at what age will Zendaya, I need to call her Zendaya. At what age will Zendaya stop being asked what it's like to kiss co-stars? People like Kate Winslet don't. So I mean, it's exhausting, isn't it? Like I've seen so many interviews. It's absolutely exhausting. It must be such an eye roll for them.
I'm guessing this was like a rhetorical question. Like we don't know.
Yeah,
but like you said earlier, like journalists, like just do better. But the reference to Kate Winslet I thought was really interesting, because she probably won't be asked that now, because women of a certain age have an expiry date in Hollywood and people just don't care about them anymore, which is another matter in itself. But Kate Winslet, when she was in her, I don't want to say in her prime, because again she's still in her prime, but when she was, I guess, Zendaya's age, her body was commented on a lot. Her agent would get calls about her saying how's her weight, and
wow.
I think, and there were like loads of things about her being airbrushed, and like she was one of the first people I think that like asked for a magazine cover of her not to be airbrushed, and like she did the Mayor of Easttown a couple of years ago, and there was like a sex scene in that, and she was like, no, I don't want it to be edited, like I want you to show like a true female's body. So Kate Winslet I think is an interesting one. But I think that they still, so I think like we might have moved on a little bit, hopefully we've moved on since then, about bodies, but for some reason people still think it's okay to ask about relationships, and it's not also, sorry, I'm on my soapbox now.
No, go for it. This is what you're here for. This is literally what you're here for.
Yeah, so it's not just women that are hounded about these sorts of things, but quite famously, or it was picked up on quite a lot by and criticised a lot by people, was I don't know what red carpet was, some awards show. Andrew Scott was asked by a journalist what he thought about the end scene of Saltburn. And we all know what happens at the end of Saltburn. It's a naked guy dancing, and for context, if people don't know, Andrew Scott is gay.
Right, I didn't know that. No.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, like he was only asked the question because someone thought like he would be better placed to talk about. He was essentially asking like, "Oh, did he have a good dick?" Like it's just so inappropriate.
So weird.
He was there to promote a film. I think it was actually promoting like All of Us Strangers, or maybe it was like he's got like an amazing body of work, Andrew Scott, basically. And this journalist asked him what he thought about the end scene of Saltburn, but it was heavily criticised. So I think it's just poor journalism. I think it is people looking for clickbait and things like that.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
But imagine-
it's
imagine-
shameful though.
Yeah, when you're resorting to that, like the thing is as well, you've got these like journalists that are like whatever age. Just remember, like you're asking a 26-year-old woman that shit, like as in it's really like cringy and embarrassing, like especially if you're like late 30s and stuff. Like it's a weird thing. Like she's a young girl that's like grown up in movies and stuff, and you're asking her about what it's like to kiss co-stars. Like, who gives a shit? Like, who cares? Like, it's literally her job.
Do you know
like,
what the fascination though is like I say the Gen Zers, but like there is a fascination between her and a relationship.
what's the fascination, John? He's gone again.
Sorry, the relationship
mark that
between
as well.
her and Tom Holland. Like there is a big obsession with that, isn't there? I think.
Sorry, I missed all that. Sorry, we missed all that, mate. The fascination is what?
Between her and Tom Holland and their relationship.
Yeah, of course, but it's. I don't know. It's just
I'm not
embarrassing.
condoning it. I'm saying they're like the Hollywood A-list couple.
Put it this
now.
way, right? I think I've said this before. Imagine getting FaceTime with someone like that, right? As a journalist, and like, right, cool. I've got FaceTime with this person. Like, they're an amazing actor. Like, what am I going to ask them? I'm going to ask them because they're pretty and they're really popular. I'm going to ask them about that. Like, it's like that's what you choose. Like in your 60 seconds, like you absolutely.
It's
crazy. So yeah, so that's.
content.
We'll
But JD, you
we'll
would
stop
also
there. But anyway,
criticise me for solely asking Euphoria questions to her. So you know.
yeah,
Also,
I mean,
like, Zendaya, as we mentioned, deserves far better. Like, she's such an accomplished
Exactly,
actor.
yeah.
She's got so much skill that she could like discuss and explore and talk about like her technique, her approach to characters, and like that's what they go for. It's just absolutely disgraceful.
boggling. Right, so what Film Forager writes in and she says, what is your favourite Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross composed movie? Sorry, it's a thing now. This is what we do when Film Forager writes in. So yeah, what's your favourite Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross composed movie, please?
I know what John's is going to be.
I know what John's going to be.
What were you? Go on then, guys. What's my
Social Network.
In Social Network.
There you go. You can do it as well, Claire.
And the voice as well, Claire. Like just to add insult to injury.
Sorry.
This is her third episode. She's comfortable now. She's
Yeah.
comfortable now. Like she's, yeah.
Do you know, just to be difficult now, I'm going to say Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but
yeah.
with the Social Network. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
Social Network's got a banging score, to be fair.
Yeah.
Claire,
Mine
what about you?
is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant
Yes.
Mayhem, which is a recent film. I don't know if you've seen it, but the score is awesome. Give it a listen. It's instantly like recognisable as. Oh, Jamie's gone.
No, I'm here. It's just we've had a technical difficulty with our camera. We carry on. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
His phone's disconnected.
But yeah, it's really recognisable that it's them. But it's because I guess the turtles are in a sewer and yeah, location-wise, it's New York. It's super industrial. So whereas Challengers is, I'd say, more techno-y and
Oof,
yeah,
absolutely.
That side of dance. This is more, industrial dance.
Excellent. Yeah. Sorry, I've had a bit of a.
James having a mare here.
I'm
It's
had
great
an
to watch.
absolute technical mare, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll be honest. I'm not really huge fans of their stuff. So I'll probably go for. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Nothing. Put it this way, nothing really sticks out in my mind that they do. Like I don't actually be like, oh, that's really memorable. The most memorable one yet is I've just like said to John about it, but it is probably the Social Network. That's the most memorable one that I know. So,
but also
Have you
the Social
seen
Network's
Turtles?
yeah, you know. By the way, so Turtles is with their. It's more about with Turtles for me. It's more about the needle drops. As opposed
There's
to
a song that goes da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, and they're like running across roofs, which is really cool.
yes. I've watched it twice. I've got it on 4K. Like I absolutely love it. Like, it's fantastic. It's probably my second favourite Turtles film. I think it's
just
superb.
a quick thing on their music. They're not really known for like melodic scores. That's not really what they're about. Like when they worked with Fincher, like when they did Gone Girl, he was like, I want it to sound like a spa from hell. Like so, you know, like.
We've talked about Gone Girl before. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, it's all about like.
What's he doing now? We're having more adjustments.
Yeah, James fanning about with his light. It's all right, Claire. We can hold the fort. It's fine.
Okay,
yeah,
should we move on to the?
Yeah, let's just move on without Jamie. See ya. What is our next question? Actually, let's have a look. The next question was.
So it's from Patch and Kim.
Oh.
Sorry, he's come back. He's taken
I'm
over
back.
because he's fixed his light. Yeah.
Sorry.
It says, if you could be in a love triangle with anyone, I haven't got my glasses on, I'm struggling.
Who would it
Who
be?
would it be? What two celebs would you like to be in a throuple with?
Thruple.
Thruple.
Sorry, throuple.
Well, one question is just love triangle. One is a thruple, but they specify one male and one female.
Yeah.
Wow. I talked about this at dinner time with my partner.
Excellent.
And my first one was Dev Patel, and he was like, Dev Patel, that's recency bias. So I think he's jealous. So anyway, my two would be Zac Efron, because I've always just had a thing for Zac Efron.
Why not, man? Yeah, he's hot. Yeah, he's
I
hot.
just love him.
And he can sing.
He can do it all.
Can
I
he?
think. Well, and then my other person, if we're doing one man and one woman, is Pamela Anderson. And I think they're two people who are absolutely gorgeous. I think they're very sensual people, but I believe that they're also way more than that. And I think they're both really misrepresented for what they are. I think they're only sort of known for their looks. And I think, well, I know that Pamela Anderson is more than that because I've recently read, well, last year I read her book, and I just think she's amazing, and she's just like got a heart of gold. And then Zac Efron, as you said, like he can sing, he can dance, he's got so much range. So they're my two.
Okay.
John, tell us about who you've got.
So, I was deliberating
You
for a
little
while.
dirtbag.
Zendaya was on the list.
Was she on the list?
I went for, and I'm throwing it back to Grace Kelly.
I knew it. Oh God, I should have said.
Because
Should have
she's
guessed,
the most.
actually, shouldn't we?
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
should have
she was a
guessed.
princess, but I'm just going to say she was so elegant and just
Grace
like,
Kelly. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Anyway.
Her name's Grace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Says it all.
Not an original thought.
What,
though,
and
sorry.
what man, John?
I was thinking, and I
David
was
Beckham.
like, no, Jose Mourinho is probably up there, but that's a different chat. Realistically, I was like, it's got to be Hollywood. I was thinking you want someone like who's going to be good entertainment. So like Zac Efron's like an interesting shout, but I was thinking more like Hugh Jackman. I feel like Hugh Jackman's a guy I could get on with. I
Big
can
bear.
imagine him being all right. Like, all
I
right.
feel like he does sing in your face.
Listen, do you want to? Have I told the
you.
story about? Have I told the story about Hugh Jackman before on this pod? I think I have.
Don't know.
I used to work in an arena. I really don't care. I'm just going to tell it. I used to work in an arena, and we would get like, obviously, we'd sometimes have loads of famous people come in, obviously. And the one time, everyone was usually sound. There was one time Floyd Mayweather was in, and he was a bit annoying because he asked for like his rider was like 30 bottles of room temperature water, 30 bottles of water at 6 degrees, like shit like that. Only green jelly babies. But Hugh Jackman was like just straight up like just rude, and I was
Nice.
like, I was so
Was
pissed off
he?
about it. Yeah, well, yeah.
No.
So we had
That's
like
gonna
a.
crash a lot of people's hearts, you know.
I know, and I'm so sorry
Well,
for
He's
anyone out
known
there
to be
that.
like just one of the nice guys of Hollywood, isn't he?
I mean, he might be like, but we had, and this is never. We had like hundreds of famous people walk through the doors, like. But we had before he was doing. What was he in for? He was probably in for doing his.
Greatest
What's it
Showman?
called? Yeah, The Greatest Showman. Yeah, so he was in for doing that or something.
When you
And,
say he
we-
was in, what do you mean?
So he was. Sorry, he was at the arena performing.
Performing? What
Yeah,
did they do
so
a
he
live
sings.
show?
Yeah,
Oh,
he does live
Great
shows. Yeah,
Show.
yeah, he sings
Oh,
and
right.
stuff. Yeah, his wife sits on the front row of every show. Yeah, he sings to her. It's cute.
From now on. Yeah.
I don't know what that was, but yeah.
I
So
knew that.
so basically, like, we had this like message from his manager, basically saying, if anyone sees Mr. Jackman, because this would happen quite often. Like you would just kind of like sometimes bump in. If anyone sees Mr. Jackman, do not look at Mr. Jackman. He doesn't want to be looked at. Do not approach Mr. Jackman. Do not ask Mr. Jackman for a photograph. Like all this, and I was like, that's
It
really
might not
made
be
me
him, that
sad.
might be his
'cause-
manager though. Yeah.
I don't know, but if put it this way, if that was me, I'd be like, manager, like, I don't want to be portrayed like that. So yeah, it was really sad actually, because you would think of him as that guy, and for
So
that
you
reason,
wouldn't be in a throuple with him then?
I have no way, man, no way.
Or throuple, as I called it. But
Not-
yeah,
Not
James,
with
it's
him.
your turn.
So the man that I would like to be with would be I've
That'd
just
be
got
crazy.
I've just straight in there with Channing Tatum.
Oh.
Because I was literally thinking about this like in a throuple, like from like a having to be with another man, like, and yeah, I'm not gay, but like if I was, I don't mind. Like if I had to be like Channing Tatum, I'm like, yeah, do you know what? He looks really clean. He's very funny.
Great, the Magic Mike dance.
Yeah, great body. Like, but then I did think about it. I was like, oh, actually, shit. Like, he would just outshine me in every single way possible, which would be a bit sad.
You're his bit of rough.
yeah, basically, yeah. I'd be the bit of rough, yeah. So then I started thinking about, so yeah, with women, like I was just thinking, yeah, I had quite a big crush on Florence Pugh, and I think we just have quite a lot of fun. Scarlett Johansson, I've got in there. Marisa Tomei, actually.
Marisa Tomei.
Yeah, so she,
Oh
have
my
a Google
God,
of.
I think she was in that film I told you about earlier.
Oh, really? So. Marisa
You couldn't be
Tomei.
Scarlett Johansson because you'd have to tell her how much you hate her Jonathan Glazer production.
Would, yeah. Yeah,
Marisa it was Marina something. Sorry, I got
Marisa
it wrong.
Tomei, and then Zoe Kravitz. I really do have a little crush on Zoe Kravitz. So I guess any one of those with Channing Tatum, but yeah, we'd have to occupy Channing with something else because. Yeah, he'd be taking all the limelight, wouldn't he? But yeah, thanks for that question. It was
that was fun.
Yeah,
also,
fun times.
Michael B. Jordan.
He's
a beautiful man.
Oh God, he's ridiculous, isn't he?
Have you seen the thing when he was on the red carpet and it was his bully from school? It was a girl.
Really?
Like, he called her out and was like, "You used to call me this." She's like, "Oh no, we didn't. It was all fun." And he was like, "No, it wasn't." And I was just
I
fair
didn't
play
see
to
that.
him for like keeping that
Yeah.
going like 20 years later and the rest.
Yeah, especially when he's like millionaire,
Super successful,
10 out of 10 looks
like a god.
I look at Michael B. Jordan. I look at myself and I'm like, don't even know how we're even the same species. You know, like it's just like quite ridiculous.
Existence hurts. Or was that what you said?
What did I say?
It hurts to exist, or whatever you
Yeah,
said.
at that moment, I'd be like, this really does hurt to exist. He's even his name's cooler than mine. I've got to stick with Jamie. Anyway, are we ready to move on to the next film?
Absolutely.
Oh, there was another question. Or were you doing that?
I think we'll do the other question. Was the other question?
There were a couple of questions about, more about Casablanca.
Older films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old films.
Old films. And this is an old film. This is a very old film. This is a film that John only watched for the first time in this week, which is wild. This is Casablanca from 1942, directed by Michael Curtiz.
I'm a saloon keeper. The problems of the world are not in my department. Why did you come back? To tell me why you ran out on me at the railway station?
If you only knew the truth.
I wouldn't believe you no matter what you told me.
So the tagline of this film is "Where love cuts as deep as a dagger," and oh yes, it does. This could be one of the biggest gut punches of a film I may have ever seen in my entire life. Would you like me to just run through the synopsis?
Yeah.
Excellent. So, essentially, we have the early signs of World War II going on. Mm-hmm. We've got lots of people that are kind of immigrating from Paris and Marseille over to French Morocco, and this is basically about Rick, who is a cafe owner played by Humphrey Bogart, and he is struggling to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her freedom fighter fugitive husband escape the Nazis in French Morocco. So that's kind of the basic gist of the story. What I'll do quickly is just run you through the 5 main characters and specifically what they do, because it just like paint a really good picture for you. So we have Rick, who is an American, and he has this bar that he runs. We have Victor Laszlo, who is trying to get an exit visa, and he is a Czech resistance leader who escaped a concentration camp. So he's very important to the resistance. We have Isla, played by Ingmar Bergman. She's in love with Rick, also doesn't dislike her husband, and she admires him, in fact, which creates like quite a lot of strange tension, and you don't know who to root for, really. And then we have Captain Louis Renault, who is a police prefect. His job, he's quite a bit crooked, but in a good way. He's working. Pardon?
He's got some dodgy He's got some
No,
dodgy
he's
moments.
working for the Gestapo, but he's secretly supporting Laszlo's cause, and he's a good friend to Rick. And then we have Signor Ferrari, played by Peter Lorre, who he's got the letters of transit for people trying to escape Casablanca. Yeah, and then we've got finally Heinrich Strasser, who is the man investigating the dead Nazis, who's stopping everyone from leaving, who is hell-bent on getting Victor Laszlo, well, he's basically hell-bent on killing him and stopping him from leaving Casablanca. So that's basically the 5 main characters, and obviously we can't forget Sam, who is Rick's probably only friend, you would say.
I was going to say you can't forget about Sam.
Yeah,
Sam's probably my favourite thing about the film.
Oh, he's a beautiful character.
But he uses him as an MP3 player to play depressing tracks that remind him of a former love. Like, that's
Yeah, he
pretty much where it's
MP3
at.
player? What decade are you in?
Well, clearly, like, stuck in the past.
Play it again, Sam.
I was going to say, like,
mean
really
record
randomly.
player?
Yeah. So
Or gramophone?
I watched this afternoon, and it made me want to cry one scene, and it wasn't the scene I thought it was going to be. Go on, I want you to stab a guess at which scene made me mega emotional as if I was about to cry. I didn't actually cry, but you know when you get the, like, you've gone, like, I went for it. What scene do you think it was?
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm intrigued.
I'm really glad
Genuinely,
that that's...
I was properly, like, swept into it, and, like, I had that with Vertigo the other week, even though I know what the outcome is and, like, the feelings and emotions and whatever. But what sequence do you think it was? Because it's not the obvious one. I'll be honest, it wasn't the end. So, like, what scene do you think is particularly emotional?
Do you well, this is difficult. Is it the bit where it's not? Is it the scene where Isla visits Rick in the office scene?
So I was emotionally kind of thinking about, like, because it shows, like, the oncoming war and you knowing the danger's coming and these people can't escape, and it shows that footage. It's a sequence when the Germans are singing their national anthem in the bar.
Yes. Okay.
And then the French start singing their anthem, and it made me really emotional, and also probably because of current events around the world and knowing, like, what's going on and thinking of it from that lens as well. Are you guys still there? Have I paused?
Yeah, no, you paused again, so sorry.
What
It made you
happens
emotional.
with-
Why?
The
I've marked
internet
it.
sucks tonight, so I really hope this
What
recording is not
happens
bad.
with the recording
Anyway.
when that happens? Can you... Will it be there somewhere, or do you have
Well,
to...
no, it will be. So I've marked the clip. So it's John's edit week. So who cares? You know, it's his broken side. So, sorry, say that again. So
just the fact of, like, I think because of the context of, like, knowing what's going on around the world and, like, thinking it from that perspective, like, it just made me emotional. But also just the fact of, like, what a terrible time where people's sovereignty was basically being removed from them, and just knowing it's coming and not being able to do anything about it, and just the fact of, like, them having the confidence to even sing that anthem could ultimately get them jailed or killed.
So a fun fact about that scene where they're singing, the song they're singing is La Marseillaise, and they're singing it over the German song. A lot of the extras had genuine, real tears in their eyes, because they were actual refugees that had escaped from Nazi persecution in Germany.
That's an amazing fact.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
The
so
actress singing at the bar, like her emotion when she's delivering it, I think that's kind of what sent me. But yeah, anyway.
It was really sweet. So, John, so your first time watch, you loved it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. No, so annoying film studies classic, seeing the intro, seeing the ending with no context and not watch the entire thing, which is great, isn't it? And anyway, so yeah, I'm always staggered when I watch these films how, like, the filmmaking at points feels so modern in certain aspects.
Oh, no.
And it always kind of shocks me, really.
Yeah, I don't know what shocked you because you froze again, but the filmmaking at points was
Go for it, yeah,
Go on.
No, you go.
The filmmaking was shocked you at points because it's really modern the way they're
In a good way or a bad way?
Yeah, no, in a good way. Like, I think the opening sequence and, like, the chase that's going on and, like, the camera movement, what have you, seems pretty sophisticated for the time. It was more to what I was going at. I think performances and acting's obviously changed, and we know that, and, like, the way lines are delivered. But I still feel like the visual storytelling in the older films, there always seems to be a lot of craft behind it. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't know, I never used to really like black and white films, but now I've got a real appreciation for them because the way you like them is just so different to how you shoot like a colour film. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And Claire, for you, this wasn't your first time watch, was it?
No, I said to you before, I have Casablanca on Blu-ray somewhere. It was like I could think a Christmas present about 4 or 5 years ago. So I watched it a while ago, and then I couldn't find my Blu-ray. I'm not a physical media person. Unfortunately, I just don't like clutter. Not that it's clutter, but I don't have room for it in my house.
I beg your pardon. Don't
cancelled.
like behind me.
People.
Like that's just one of them.
But
Yeah,
you've got
that's
shelf
hilarious.
space. All my shelf space has books in it,
I don't like clutter. Well,
and I don't want to start buying
one
them.
man's clutter is another man's treasure, you know.
Yeah. Anyway, so I have it somewhere. I have certain discs, to be fair. Like I've got the Mad Men box set, which is like one
Right.
of my treasured possessions. But I don't like just buying loads and loads of DVDs because I'd rather stream them. It's just easier for me. Anyway,
Yeah.
couldn't find it, which is like a reason for me not to
Brilliant.
have DVDs.
Clutter, yeah. Probably at the bottom of your drawer somewhere.
Yeah. So I rented it, and then I started watching it last night, and I got called away, and then
Yeah.
I watched it today, fresh. Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? And one of the things I picked up on is similar to John about the performances. So like just the way that they, like the received pronunciation, the accents, the
Yeah.
way, like obviously the music's different. I love the costumes. Like I think I was paying attention to a lot of the performance elements, and yeah, it's just awesome, isn't it? And
Yeah, it's beautiful.
what
Yeah.
an amazing piece of history as well.
Yeah, so there's a few like really interesting parts of this film. So I watched the film twice today. Actually, I've watched the film like loads of times, but I watched it this morning because I had the day off work, and then I watched it this afternoon with a director's commentary. Not director's commentary, it was Roger Ebert commentary actually, which is really really interesting. It elevated the film a lot for me because when you've got someone like that pointing out lots of different things, and the reason why they do that is because of this XYZ. Like it's like brilliant. It's weird because when I put it on this morning, it's like, oh, illegal immigrants in Casablanca. So the police are doing raids and searches, and they want people's credentials, and these papers are essentially giving people passage and a right to live there. And you see someone right at the beginning of the film who doesn't have papers, who runs away and just gets shot. And there's refugees there that have been waiting for years for a visa. And it just reminded me hilariously, like, and sorry to talk politics, but and sorry if this is on the wrong side of the politics that you enjoy, but like the first thing I thought of was like the Conservative Party's last ditch attempt at like getting into power by saying like stop the boats like 6 months ago, and I was just
I
like,
don't think it's hilarious though. I don't think that's quite the right word.
no. When I say hilarious, I mean I mean it in like a tongue in cheek. Like I don't find it funny at all. No, no. Sorry, hilarious isn't.
People use like the people getting on the boats as a like a huge political sway, don't they? Like someone,
Yeah,
did you say
yeah.
that someone switched parties this week?
No.
A Tory MP moved to Labour. I think
Right.
she's the Deal and Dover MP, which is obviously where people come over on boats from,
Yeah.
mostly in the country.
Yeah.
And that's her like main point on her manifesto. So like it's such a huge thing, like particularly this week in politics. So I think you're right.
Yeah. So, but it's crazy that like it still resonates and is going on today. But the fact that was the Conservative Party's like last ditch attempt at like appealing to a specific type of person in this country that they're going to stop the boats, and like I'm just like, well, we're doing all right in this country, so why would we be turning away people that have like risked their lives to get here, like from traveling from like war-torn countries or whatever the situation is? So I found that quite. That's the first thing I noticed. I was like, and I literally I put in bold like stop the boats, and I was like, because it says free France, and so when I said hilariously, what I mean is like hilariously as in it's a complete and utter joke, like that we're still doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of like that. But yeah, I watched it this morning again for I've watched it quite a few times now, and it really is the reason why it stood the test of time is because of the time it was made, and you have like a lot of like they were losing a lot of extras, so like a lot of these actors were going to war, so they were having to like pull in like the people, like random people from Morocco, like just doing little bits for them and stuff. So really interested in the fact that Michael Curtiz, the way he shoots things is very much just, he wants to tell the stories very, very clearly. So he just shoots these story bits. You don't really have much exposition or anything like that. But we just see in many different occasions these just like immortal lines throughout it that you've heard. Anyone who's not seen Casablanca would be able to, like, they would recognize all
in the world.
Yeah, and so for me, it's really funny. Like, John will know what I'm about to say.
Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, of all the gin joints in all the world, the first time I heard that, it was the second song on on Under the Cork Tree for the Fall Out Boy, and I was like, oh, that's it. I wonder what that means. Like, and then obviously later on down the line, it's a quote from Casablanca. But some of the I feel like the romance in these older films really just brings such a weight to them, and it's more romantic in a way. Like the fact that he, you know, the quote where he keeps saying like, "Here's looking at you, kid," and you're like, as a kid again, I was like, I don't know what that means, like, but he's actually like, the sight of Isla's face brings him such joy that the mere act of like looking at her, he's cheers into the fact that he gets to look at her face, like, and stuff like that is like, just we don't really do that anymore, because it's obviously, it would be a bit cheesy now, I guess, but I think something back then, the black and white element of it really just works, doesn't it?
Yeah Nostalgic.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I was just going to talk quickly about the
Can I say it's also quite funny in places as well?
Yes.
Like, some of the dialogue is like, is that like classic Hollywood, like that cheeky humour. So one of the lines that I wrote down was when, I can't remember who says it now, but someone says, I'm shocked that gambling is happening. And then he like slides him, here are your winnings.
Yeah. Here's your $2,000 or whatever.
Good. Yeah, so good. Sorry, my mic
there's a lot of little bits like that. But have any of you guys got anything specific you wanted to go over?
I think I just referred to the questions because so we can I can speak to them when that comes up.
Yeah, cool. Cool. So I mean, the main bits that I've got here is obviously we've got the main story is that we've got Rick, who owns the bar, who's like really cold and bitter, and it's strange because like at this time, Humphrey Bogart had been known to be like the tough guy in like gangster films, that kind of thing, and they really wanted him to like pivot away from that. So this was one of the first roles where they decided that actually he's a leading guy and he's romantic and he's got the charisma to carry a film in this way. And that was kind of when this was one of the first films that he did that. And obviously you've got Ingrid Bergman as well, who's like amazing in this, and actually Humphrey Bogart's wife at the time was thinking that they were having an affair together, so there was a lot of tension on set between
it's so Zendaya, what does Tom Holland think of you kissing? So we had that basically.
Yeah, probably, but there was no internet
People
at the time
about relationships.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of just touch upon like some of the main bits really, like obviously it was quite rare back then to have like such a gut punch really, and the monologue at the end, the fight we get, like, it's the whole film is this big climax like at the end, and we get like, it's only 4 minutes long, this last little bit, but obviously leading up to that he bumps into Ingmar Bergman, Isla. She comes into his bar and he's like, oh my god, like what the heck is going on, like they're just devastated to see each other almost, and she's obviously with Victor Laszlo, her husband, and then it goes on this like weird monologue of which is probably the worst part of the film, where we see these like terrible rear projection of like when they're in the car and stuff. You could maybe look at it
about that.
Don't slate that.
So
it's of
they
the time.
have the car, but then I think it's just the car is too bouncy. So I don't think it's the projection. I think it's the actual movement of the car which is really off-putting.
It's like when the wheel's doing this.
Yeah. 1942.
Yeah,
I guess.
They're on like some sort of, I don't even know what it would be called. But after the car, they go onto a boat, don't they? And I think they did a really good job of the boat.
Decent. Yeah.
They just had a really good time. It's just this like montage.
Time.
It's like probably Rocky got training montages from this film. Like this montage scene of them like very quickly falling in love. Like you say that like the candle that burns the brightest burns the shortest, you know, like, and he wants to be with her, and he seems to be a little bit more in than she is, and he says, like, just come away with me, and she says, oh no, I can't. And we get that kind of scene where he gets a letter from her, and the letter kind of says, it's in the rain, and it says, which is a really important part, I think. It says, hold on, I've got it here. Richard, I cannot go with you or ever see you again. You must not ask why. Just believe that I love you. To my darling, and God bless you, Isla. And obviously, during this time, she thinks that Victor, her husband, is dead, but he's actually in a concentration camp, and she's got word that he's alive. But the letter just kind of just fills the screen, and you see all this rain coming onto the letter, smearing the ink, almost like it's tears from her as he's kind of reading it, which there's loads of like subtle little bits like that all the way through. Even the way he touches Sam on the way past, like he touches Sam, and it's the only person that he even interacts with physically at all, and you know that Sam's the kind of only closest person he has, and that he has a lot of love for Sam. And it was quite big at the time that an African American actor was actually portrayed in this way, that he's a main character and his confidant and a really good friend, because usually they would be in other roles, such as
he's not like a villain or othered, really, is he?
Yeah, exactly, or the help, like something like that. So it was quite like ahead of its time in that regard. But I mean, portrayed an African American actor as normal, maybe, like, you know. So that's really cool. Like I love that about it. And obviously there is a scene though where he talks. Someone tries to get Sam to move over to his bar, and the way that conversation goes, he's
it's
like,
a bidding war.
Yeah, and he does kind of treat him like property at that point. So he asks Sam, like, oh, do you want to go? He says before he's even spoken to Sam, like, oh, do you want to go to his bar? And then he asks him himself, and he's like, I'll pay double. And he's like, oh, I don't even have time to spend what I earn here. And he says it with a smile, but I feel like there is a little bit of something sinister there, because, well, one, if he can't spend the money, does that mean he's always working, or does it mean he's being paid well? And it's like, it does seem like he's controlling him a little bit, or a lot. Yeah. So yeah, there is undertones of, you know, a power dynamic between, and
well, that probably links on quite well to the question from
movie scenes and shit.
Yes, correct. Well done for getting the chat up.
Cool. Do you think people are justified in not wanting to watch old movies because of outdated views and stereotypes, or are they missing out on a world of wonderful movies? So that's a really good question. So do you think people are justified in not wanting to watch old movies because of outdated views and stereotypes, or are they missing out on a world of wonderful movies? What do we think?
Well, our mantra on the pod in the early days was always, we try and judge a film by the time it was made rather than by today's standards, because the truth is, even there's things from 10 years ago now.
He's crashed again. Where are you gone, John?
Like, we wouldn't view in the same way.
Sorry.
Oh.
John, you left again. So we judge a film
this internet's
by the time it's made.
Tonight. Oh, God.
Yeah. Judge a film by the time it's made.
Yeah, we try to, because there's things that were made even like 10 years ago which are now like not culturally appropriate. Mm-hmm. So I think that's my viewpoint on it. But I also don't like trying to delete these things or not acknowledge them, because we should know what it was like to see how far we've come, or hopefully how far we've come or not in certain things. But I think I remember when it was like people were talking about getting rid of statues of bits and pieces a few years ago, and I was like, I understand, like, but we need to face the fact, like, a lot of the way our society built was wrong. And I don't like just completely removing it. I feel like you need to have that there to see the change. But I don't know. I might not be right. But
I think there's two things here. So there's outdated views is one thing, and stereotypes, I guess, is slightly separate to that, because stereotypes exist like across the board, and it's one of the ways that people decode movies or decode messages. Like, we understand that's that sort of person because they're doing this, and we associate that with this sort of thing. But I think generally that people are completely missing out. And like John said, modern films are not off the hook for those things of having outdated views or stereotypes. And one of the things that I think film is and TV is brilliant for is learning. So like, I think as long as there is a recognition that this took place in a certain time and is representative of a certain viewpoint or attitude or context, I think that needs to be acknowledged. If it's to do with how things are framed as well, isn't it? Like it's so context heavy. But I think if people just don't watch old movies, which I guess was the essence of the question, because they're old and because they think that doesn't align with what I believe, like that's a bit of an odd thing to do. I just find that bizarre. Like that's you being closed off. I think
I completely agree with the both of you. I think the one thing that does probably concern me, the one thing I don't like to see is when, and there are people out there that do it, because obviously we mingle with a lot of like different people that love film and stuff, so obviously there's a lot of different views, and a lot of maybe younger people see things differently for me. So like, for example, the word racist is thrown around all the time, like to the point of, and it will be to the point of where it is, it loses
like
its
a film is racist, or
it loses its value. So this is racist, like, and if I think calling something racist is quite it should be for when it needs to be called racist, when something is definitely treading that line. But I think people throw the word around quite often now, and it's to the point of where it will just start losing meaning. But absolutely right, like when we're talking about like deleting episodes, so like Little Britain, for example, had like deleted episodes. There's deleted scenes of films now, so like French Connection on Disney Plus has, like, which is like a film by William Friedkin. Like literally the only way you can get the original film now is by buying the Blu-ray. And so with that, like, it's quite, I think it's quite a really dangerous line to tread, because if we start deleting things, then we start forgetting things happened, such as the Holocaust and things like that. So we shouldn't be deleting anything, and it should be there for, as Claire said, education. And
film is history, like, isn't it? Film
Don't pretend
is
you
history,
didn't do it. Like,
we're talking about this.
Yeah, we did it. Like,
Nazis. Like,
exists. Exactly. It exists, and it's important for us to know that it existed, so we don't do it again. You know, like I say, like I was like, nothing to do with me, but but with that kind of thing, it should be it should exist forever, because it'd be like, look how shit we were then. That's crazy. But even still, with these old films in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you're obviously going to see probably quite a lot of sexism usually. You're going to see a lot of marginalized characters doing as the help, or like bit part characters, or the villain, like as Claire said, and it's just kind of
that is sometimes hard to watch, isn't it?
I
think, which is worth acknowledging, and like
definitely,
I can kind of see, like, for some people, like that must be really triggering. Like if a certain character is representing like a big part of your identity, and you're always seeing the same thing, like I do understand, like, you might not want to watch that, but in terms of like outdated views, if the only things that you watch are things that you already believe in, then that is narrowing your worldview.
100%.
You're closed off to
and you shouldn't be given something half a star because there was a racist thing in it. It's like you kind of have to like take it on the whole. I actually, so that's interesting you say that, like, about people watching it, like, and how it can be triggering and stuff, because I had, like, one of my really good friends is black, and so when if we've watched something together, like, I know him well enough to be able to like speak to him about these things because it's interesting to me, and so I'll be like, afterwards, like when we're like talking about it and stuff, I'm like, did that, like, how does that feel for you? Like, is it, because obviously, like, for me, I can't really relate to it, but like, how does it feel for you? And he would just like turn around and kind of like, he's very like, I literally don't care, but like it's interesting to hear from someone else's perspective, and maybe for us or me, like, I don't really find things that triggering, like certain things. I think as I've got older, like, I think someone asked me the other day, like, probably when I was younger, I didn't really care about anything that I saw, like, on on film, nothing would really upset me or anything. But I think nowadays I'm way more sensitive to certain elements now. I think just because I've got older and I realise they exist. Like, so I think it's a lot of people as they get older tend to feel a bit weirder about these things. I feel like I might have rambled there a bit.
But and with the stereotypes thing, stereotypes can be positive and negative.
Yeah, but of course, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, they're often, stereotypes are often there, like, for a reason as well, like, because
they're like a marker, aren't they? Sometimes they can be a narrative marker, so you understand, like, if a character is good or bad, like, to be really simple about it. Yeah,
they mentioned something a while ago, which was a stereotype that we should get away from, which is like, they would always use, like, in Bond films and stuff, like like one of the villain would always have like a scar or something, and it's like, we need to, like, maybe stop doing that, because, like, some people just have scars, you know, like, and they're not always a bad guy. Like, it's just I fell. You know?
Symbolic coding, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that person's bad. They've got a scar on their face. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, you just know, or they've got a one eye or something, you know. Like, but I think for people that do have those things, it might be, they just might feel a bit shit, you know. Like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
probably.
David Ellis writes in, and he says, if Casablanca was being filmed today, what is one key change you would make to it, and why? That's a difficult question. So I've watched it twice, and I'm still clutching at straws a little bit, but I have a couple of things. So
I have a couple of things. I'm worried that I'm going to get completely cancelled, but you go first.
Is it to do with the bouncy car?
We'll end with
that
Clare.
Was in there, but it's something else.
Yeah, we'll end with Clare, because they'll forget about me then. So yeah, I mean, the one thing I did mention was the rear projection shots, which so for me, because the film's an hour and 40 minutes, right?
Swift.
Yeah, so nowadays it's much more acceptable to be an hour and 50 or 2 hours. So I would maybe, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I could potentially lengthen the film by 10 minutes or so, and just see a little bit more of the fleshing out of Rick and Isla's little fling. No, I don't need to see no sex, but I just want to see them. I want to see them order. I want to see him order a nice seafood dinner and never call her again.
I actually didn't write it down, but one of the things I noticed when I was watching it is when they were close and there was like evidence of chemistry, like physical chemistry between them. I felt like it cut away too early.
Let me tell you about that.
Yeah, it doesn't hold it like it in.
Yeah,
it
didn't linger long enough.
Shots and
would you like me to tell you about that?
Oh God, what do you have an info?
Let me tell you about that. Let me tell you a little bit about that. So we have something called, well, you might know about it already, but obviously Hays Code, for example. So Hays Code was introduced in films from 1930s to up until 1968. It only really got enforced in 1935. So Hays Code, what Hays Code was that was kind of like, you're talking, you weren't allowed like lustful kissing, you weren't allowed nudity, you can't show drugs or guns in a positive light, you couldn't show rape on screen, all of this kind of stuff. So one of the reasons why you might see that is because adultery is not allowed to be shown on screen around that time. So that's why some people look at it today and we're
Weird
like,
film to be made then.
huh? Yeah, exactly, yeah. So they can't show adultery on screen.
Yeah.
As also the final scene of the film, like, really, if you knew anything about Hays Code back then, the film has been criticised for this. If you knew anything about Hays Code back then, you would be like, well, he's not going to get with Isla anyway because they're not allowed to show it because she's married, you know. So anyway, that might be why they didn't have a kiss. Have a little kiss.
Like not even a kiss, just like when they were looking at each other. I just felt like it cut away
really
too quickly. Yeah.
Wow.
Too lustful.
Yeah, maybe it's just
too much lust in their eyes, you know.
Yeah.
What else have you got, Claire?
Okay, so I had the car scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said similar to you, like I would like to see like more of the place because you know, like it's quite limited in terms of location. I felt.
Yeah.
So the men's hair all looks really similar, and at times I'm like, got confused about who was who.
Yeah.
The same. Plus it's in black and white, so it's even harder. I had some positives in here as well. Like, so the thing about Sam, voice, the piano, using words like woo, like the actual language they use, I just think it's adorable, like wooing someone. And the women's costumes, some of them are so blingy, like I would totally wear that now. I just love it. So, there's a scene where I can't remember who it is now, but one of the women is basically told it's too late and she has to be put to bed. And one of them, can you remember who it is?
No, but
No.
it's just quite funny.
It's hinted. It's like, oh, I think it's getting late.
Yeah.
And she's basically told, like, it's time to go to bed now, darling. Like, it's
Yeah.
too late for you to be up now with the men. And I just hated that. But the thing that I don't think people will be a fan of and or agree with me with, so I'm going to phrase it like a question. The like most famous line in possibly the most famous film. Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Is the kid necessary?
Yeah.
Does it infantilize her? It definitely belittles her by calling her kid. And I just...
But Humphrey
I know I
Bogart's...
said I like the language.
Yeah.
But, like, that choice of word, I hate it.
But was Humphrey Bogart 50 years old at all times? Because he always looked it. I've never seen I've never seen Humphrey Bogart young. Like, no, he's just always looked 50. But yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I've not. Yeah, so Claire's proposing that we change one of the most immortalized lines in the whole film. Yeah, cool. I see what you mean about getting cancelled.
Yeah, so he says it a few times. So like,
he does.
He
says it like 4 times.
To be fair, I do see, like, I understand the sentimentality of it, but I don't like the choice of words.
No.
Yeah. So that's my main thing that I would change about it. And I saw there was like a German translation of it, and apparently the kid bit translates to honey, so maybe that would be better, but I don't know.
I mean, no one speaks like that, do they? And that's just no one at all. It's a bit weird, but
I love how he says it to her, but I don't like the choice of word, to be clear.
Here's looking at you, kid. Yeah, I guess. John, go on.
Sorry, I was just because I was going far less controversial. I just thought, when they do the model shots of the plane, which are pretty good, but they hadn't learnt the whole to shoot them at the slower frame rate, because then it makes them look weightier to make them feel more real. So I whenever it cut to the toy plane, I got a bit annoyed. But
I thought the plane bits were really good, actually. I love your technical expertise, though, that you bring.
So should we basically just talk about this last final scene, and then we can wrap up. Before we do talk about it, I do have one little quick, strange, fascinating fact for you. So the aeroplane at the end of the film. So the whole film culminates to the point of where we've got Isla and Victor who need to get off Casablanca. Otherwise, Victor is in big trouble. The only person that can help them is Rick, who is Humphrey Bogart. He has the credentials that are hidden in Sam's piano. He doesn't really want to help them because his heart's been completely smashed to smithereens. He doesn't really know why. And then it all kind of Isla and Rick meet up in this room. She pulls a gun on him, which is just really does take the story in a surprising direction. I was quite surprised that she would actually pull a gun on him. He doesn't really care because he's just quite cold, and he doesn't really care about anyone, let alone himself. So we find at that point she kind of explains the reason why she had to disappear, and so they plot their escape. Rick and Isla are going to be escaping on their own, and they're gonna kind of send Victor, make sure Victor's safe, but they're gonna send him off as well. So they all go to the airport in the final 4 minutes of the film. So this is 4 minutes, crazy. And I'm like, how much can happen in this time? It's where we get this really, really famous monologue from Rick, and it's the bit where he says, I've got a job to do, where I'm going you can't follow. He basically tells Isla that he's not going with her, you're going with Victor, because actually we realise then the film is mostly about sacrifice, really, because Rick is obsessed with Isla and wants to be with her, but he has to let her go with Victor because Victor will not fulfill what he needs to do as a freedom fighter if Isla is not with him, because he'll be heartbroken. And actually, Victor doesn't deserve it. He's a nice guy, isn't he? Really nice guy, moralistic guy.
Yeah.
It's not really a triangle, really, is it?
I would say it's quite difficult because you've got Rick. I would say Rick's the most dislikable. Rick's not that likable because he is a cold character, and he doesn't really care, does he? Whereas the nicest character probably is Victor. Like he's lovely. He loves his wife, and he cares about the Czech Republic and the resistance. So he was in a concentration camp, and she was doing all sorts, Not very nice of her, hey?
She
Adultery,
didn't know.
maybe. But the final 4 minutes, we get that huge monologue. He sends her away, and then ultimately, it's that gut punch of her going, like Rick being on his own and her going away. The little fun fact I had for you was the airplanes are actually the airplane in that scene is made out of cardboard, right? So they actually made the airplane out of cardboard, but employed little people to work on the plane and be around the plane, so it gave the plane a bigger stature.
Scale, nice.
So
okay.
So they
Force perspective as well.
Yeah, so they hired people of short stature to be around the plane, so it made the plane look bigger.
Now to see if you can tell it's cardboard.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So I would imagine at some point down the line, maybe in the next 100 episodes, we might probably take a look at Casablanca and maybe just have it as the main film, because I was toying with the idea of having it the main film today, but I think it was probably we had to go with challenges because of the recency,
So you didn't say about the last line of the film.
The last line in the film, Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
So
I like that one. I wouldn't change anything about that.
No, it's perfect. So actually, that line was added in after the film was made. So that was So that was added in post, and it was written by.
How do you know all this off the top of your head?
It's got a book.
Well, no. So I have been doing some reading on this as well.
Okay.
So I've been doing some reading. I've written all my notes while I was watching the film as well, and I watched some behind the scenes stuff. So just got to prepare, and so it's
very professional.
No, thank you very much. Yeah. Well, you had your email beforehand, Claire. You had the running order. You had the questions. It's more than what you'd get on most of these podcasts, Anyway, we've answered all the questions, haven't we?
I think so.
Yeah, indeed.
I think we have. Right. I'm going to go and organise my throuple with Channing Tatum and Zoe Kravitz. I don't know what you guys are doing, but yeah.
Can I give a really short plug for something before we go?
Yeah. So we'll let everyone
Pull
leave.
your mic up again,
and
Claire. You've got a little bit quiet.
Sorry.
It's all right. Sorry.
So a short plug because as I said at the beginning, I'm a programmer for Film Bath Festival, which runs every year. At the moment, we're doing monthly film clubs, but I guess people wouldn't necessarily travel into Bath just for a one night film. But the festival itself is going to be from the 18th. This is, mark your calendars, save the dates.
Yep.
The 18th of October to the 27th of October. Obviously, we were getting lots of announcements from Cannes at the moment, so we've got our first programming meeting coming very, very soon. So going to be watching lots of hopefully amazing films that will go into the programme in October. So yeah, if you like watching previews and lots of exciting cinema, at least half of the films that we programme will be F-rated, so directed, written by, starring women. Have a look at the programme at least. If you can't make it, obviously you could just donate to the festival. That's my plug for it.
Give money to the festival. Yeah, if you were gonna buy a T-shirt from Movies in a Podshell, just donate to that instead, because we'd love that.
Yeah.
And me and John will try and make our way down this year. We couldn't last year because I think his daughter was still a little bit too young actually for us to leave. I make it out like it's our daughter, like that. Me and John are like
where are you for all the babysitting, mate?
Co-parenting. Me and John are co-parenting currently with our daughter. But no.
Well, on a serious note though, like I know I said that kind of in jest, but there is a way to donate. I mean, I could share it with you so you can put it in the podcast thing. But funding for all things culture is like hugely decreased. I mean, didn't all the funding for arts get pulled in Birmingham?
So the Electric Cinema, which is the oldest cinema in the UK, has shut down now.
Gone.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
but
devastating.
I'm sure like the budget went to 0% for arts funding in Birmingham. Like that
Really?
was just a decision that was made.
Well, the council's broke, so the
Yeah.
council have spent all their money. I think what they did. So yeah, this is a funny story, and maybe I'll have Birmingham City Council after me as well. Now, like, who cares? Come and get me. I think they basically underpaid all of the female staff, and so they're now.
Say allegedly.
They allegedly. No, that's what I meant. Yeah, I meant
Yeah.
allegedly underpaid a lot of the female staff, and so
Okay.
now they owe lots of money. Yeah, and so my bin's going to get emptied one less time a month, and I'm not even joking. So yeah, that's hilarious.
Crazy, isn't it?
So
But
yeah,
in terms of arts funding, like venues, museums, theatre, film, like it's all like, hard times for a lot of people. So if you can support, whether it's a film bath or just like your local one, like please do, because it's so important to keep them going.
go out and watch films as well. Like go out and watch films at your independence. Yeah, all the time. Mockingbird Cinema. That's where we always go. So Claire, where can they find you? They can find you online, can't they?
Yeah, so I've got a website which is missenscene.co.uk. It's Substack. It's hosted on Substack, so you can just subscribe and then you get every time I post a review or an interview, or I have a monthly film club, which is just like a suggestion based on a theme. This month's theme is art in film, because it's 200 years since the doors of the National Gallery opened. Next month is Camp Out. So it's just going to be films that feature camping. So like it varies from month to month.
Oh, I've got a good suggestion for that.
Yeah, please do. And then so that's my website, and then I'm on Instagram as Missenscene Film, and Letterboxd I think it's just Missenscene.
Bro, and can people still buy you a coffee on your website?
I think it's on my Linktree. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't buy me a coffee. Donate to the festival.
Yeah, just give money to the festival. I do have a bone to pick for you actually, Claire. Just before we leave.
Go on.
This wasn't in my notes. Yeah, last time we spoke about your website, you were speaking about like how like some stuff happened on the website, and then like John got all freaked out, and we had to cancel. We had T-shirt gate.
We
cancelled all our T-shirts.
Yeah,
so,
I shut him down.
Yeah, he shut
that
me.
wasn't just because of me though, was it?
Oh, I think it
was
90%.
simmering. You reignited it. It was great.
Oh, okay. Well, I might
good.
have saved you thousands of pounds in lawsuits. So
that's yeah,
Absolutely.
of course, yeah. No, I'm
Jamie was
just
playing fast and loose.
I am joking. Yeah, do you know what? Do you know what? Here's something. We are going. I promise. I got a speeding ticket and a parking ticket in the same week.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, that sucks. Can you query them, or were you in the wrong?
I've queried both of them. I genuinely don't think I'm in the wrong. So, I'm innocent. John, where can they find the best videographer in the UK?
I'm not, but at jcb.video.
I think you bloody well are. And you can find me at MoviesinaPODshell or us. The next episode we're going to do, it could be Hereditary, but we're going to see about that.
Ooh.
Yeah, a little bit of a folk horror for you. John's getting into his horror now when it's good. Shame Hereditary isn't, but I'll watch it for a second time and decide. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Here's looking at you, kids. Bye.
Honeys.